Chapter 137. As Mengqi spoke, she took out her nameplate. The two disciples of the Heavenly Sea Pavilion were a little surprised, but they still took her nameplate. After confirming that the other party could indeed pay so many Xian spirit stones, they left the relevant mark on it. Mengqi kept the nameplate, nodded to the two of them, and turned to walk out of the door. She still wanted to buy some things needed for alchemy and go to the Heaven and Earth book house to see if she could find any records about the 10 Extremes mountain. Mengqi hoped that she could go as high as possible for the next trip to the 10 Extremes mountain. After leaving the Heavenly Sea Pavilion's treasure pavilion, she looked at the two shops in the distance. On this floating island, there should be treasure pavilions opened by the 10 major sects in the north and south of the 3,000 worlds. She could buy some rarer spiritual herbs and spiritual flowers there. Mengqi took out the guidebook that she received when she first entered Heaven's Beyond City. Not only did it have the distribution of shops in Heaven's Beyond City, but it also had the records of the other 6 floating islands except for the highest floating island. When Mengqi first looked at it, she did not look at the records of the 2 floating islands too carefully. She still remembered that when she first came to Heaven's Beyond, she met a kind fellow who told her that although there were treasure pavilions opened by the 10 major sects in the 4 realms on these 2 floating islands, not everyone could come. Therefore, she did not study it carefully at that time, and did not open it again later. At this time, she took out the book again, and found that there was more content at the back. Mengqi was a little puzzled. The introduction book of Heavens Beyond was also written on a bamboo slip. Although there was a lot of content inside, to a cultivator, it was just a matter of a breath of spiritual energy. It did not seem troublesome. At that time, she did not read the content at the back carefully, but after a glance, she roughly remembered what was on it. Was there so much content at that time? Mengqi muttered. She found that the book not only had records of Heaven's Beyond City and the 6 floating islands, but there was also an appendix at the back. The appendix recorded all the functions of Heavens Beyond that could be exchanged with spiritual points. Mengqi quickly glanced at it. There was a lot of content in the appendix, including using spiritual points to exchange for the right to open a shop. If the top 10 sects of the 4 realms wanted to open a treasure pavilion on these 2 floating islands, they would need to exchange for spirit points. In other words, the shops here did not require spirit stones as rent, but were all exchanged with spirit points. In the appendix, in addition to the functions that could be exchanged with spiritual points, it also recorded in detail the amount of spiritual points needed to exchange for each function. So cheap? Mengqi glanced at it. About 1/3 of the functions only required a few spiritual points. For example, the function that she used before to reserve auction items only required 8 spiritual points. In addition, he could also use spiritual points to post a request for purchase, which also only required 5 spiritual points. One could use spiritual points to exchange for the right to reserve the entire Beyond Heaven Pavilion. Normally, the Beyond Heaven Pavilion would not accept the right to reserve the entire Beyond Heaven Pavilion. One could only use spiritual points to exchange for it. This was slightly more expensive, but it was only 20 spiritual points. However, opening a treasure pavilion on Floating Sky Island would only cost 100 points a month, and there would even be a discount for a year. If the treasure pavilion was not opened on Floating Sky Island, then in Beyond Heaven City, it would only cost 30 spiritual points a month. Mengqi scratched her head. For the first time, she felt a little confused. She took out her nameplate again and reached out to hold it. 1, 10, 100,000, 10,000, 37,000 spiritual points. Mengqi finally could not help but gasp. She remembered that she had counted once before. She had more than 20,000 spiritual points, but because it required 10 spiritual points to exchange for a book in the Heaven and Earth book house, Mengqi did not feel that she had a lot of spiritual points. Now that she looked at the appendix and the number of spiritual points that followed it, Mengqi realized for the first time that she was probably really rich now. Not only did she have spiritual points, but she also had a lot of spiritual points in Beyond Heaven City. This was something more important than spiritual stones here. She stood in place for a moment. She knew where the spiritual stones came from. What about these spiritual points? Mengqi held the small nameplate tightly. More than 37,000 spiritual points. She clearly did not do anything. Just like in the past, she clearly did not do anything for Yun Qingyan, but Mengqi closed her eyes and looked up at the highest floating sky island. She wondered if its owner was still there. She also wondered if he was doing well now. He might never need her to do anything for him, but she could not just stand behind him like that. Mengqi took a deep breath, and suddenly felt full of energy. She looked at the manual of Beyond Heaven again. Not only did it have the distribution of shops in Beyond Heaven City, but it also recorded the locations of the treasure pavilions of the major sects on these two floating sky islands. She was now on the floating sky island shared by the North and South Land. Among the 10 major sects in the Northland, only one was a medical cultivation sect. There was also one in the Southland, and it was the Songhai Academy that Mengqi was very familiar with. Li Che was a disciple of the Songhai Academy, and was the most valued disciple of their sect master. Mengqi had fought side by side with him in the Starfall Sea. Although they did not talk much, she had always had a good impression of Li Che, probably because of the memories of her previous life. Mengqi thought for a moment, and walked towards the treasure pavilion of the medical cultivation sect in the Northland. At this time, in the treasure pavilion of the Heavenly Sea Pavilion, two disciples watched as Mengqi's figure gradually disappeared. They slowly retracted their gazes and looked at each other. They saw a bit of surprise in each other's eyes. Little Qi, the Heavenly Sea Pavilion disciple who led Mengqi here, frowned slightly. Why do I feel like I've heard this name somewhere? Oh, the other disciple narrowed his eyes. In a transaction in Beyond Heaven, one did not need to know the true identity of the other party. The cultivators who came here could even choose to change their appearance. In a transaction here, the only thing that both parties could know about each other was the identity on the other party's nameplate. Thousands of cultivators came to Beyond Heaven every day. Their Heavenly Sea Pavilion's Dharma treasures were also quite famous in the 3,000 worlds. Naturally, there were many cultivators who had traded before. Had he come here to buy things before? The other party looked so young and did not look like a disciple of a large sect. He was also so generous. More than 30 Xian spirit stones. The 3,000 worlds was so big, and there were many sects of all sizes. Some small sects, even if they used all their strength, would not be able to take out so many Xian spirit stones. However, this person wanted it just like that. He did not even blink his eyes, nor did he say that he wanted to pick those Dharma treasures. He did not look like he was here to buy a level 6 Dharma treasure. He looked more like he was buying cabbage in the market. The disciple of the treasure pavilion of the Heavenly Sea Pavilion was amused by his own thoughts. Although their Heavenly Sea Pavilion had only risen rapidly in the past few hundred years, they were still the strongest weapon cultivation sect in the 3,000 worlds. A level 6 Dharma treasure with an incantation was something that could only be refined by an elder in the sect. Even if it was not especially rare, it was definitely not cabbage. One had to know that many ordinary disciples of large sects were unable to own a Dharma treasure of their own in their entire lives. The two Heavenly Sea Pavilion disciples stared at each other, unable to get the answer they wanted from the other party. They just felt that the name was a little familiar, but they really could not remember where they had heard it before. The treasure pavilion of the Heavenly Sea Pavilion was silent for a moment. The two turned to look at the elder in the guest room at the same time. This is Beyond Heaven. Noticing the two disciples' gazes, the Heavenly Sea Pavilion elder spoke. You are also disciples of the Heavenly Sea Pavilion. He paused, his tone still calm. Since the owner of this place set such a rule, do not ask what you should not ask. Yes, Uncle Master. The two disciples hurriedly bowed. We will follow Uncle Master's teachings. That person closed his eyes again and said faintly, Your master asked you to come here to gain experience because he hoped that you would be able to control your heart and focus on your own path of cultivation no matter where you are. You must understand his painstaking efforts. Yes. The two bowed again and respectfully accepted the teachings. That person did not speak anymore. The small bamboo slip in his palm emitted a faint light again. The treasure pavilion became quiet again. The disciple who led Mengqi had also left and returned to the shop in Beyond Heaven City. All of this was like a very normal episode in the heavens beyond heaven. However, the same thing happened twice in a row today. When Mengqi came out of the treasure pavilion of the Songhai Academy, she spent another 50 Xian spirit stones. Before going to the treasure pavilion of the Songhai Academy, she had already gone to the shop of a medical cultivation sect that was one of the top 10 sects in the north. She spent a total of 80 Xian spirit stones there. The medical cultivation sects in the north and south all had some spirit herbs that were only available in their own places. These spirit herbs were not as rare as natural treasures, but they each had their own miraculous uses. Mengqi's trip this time could be considered as a fruitful one. She somewhat understood why Grandmasters Beyond was far more important than Cloud Immortal Pavilion among the high-level cultivators. It was because one could buy many things here that Cloud Immortal Pavilion could not. After spending more than 100 Xian spirit stones, the spirit herbs that Mengqi needed were almost all bought. The minor 10 Extremes mountain was not open yet, so she could refine some pills during this period of time. Mengqi walked towards the teleportation formation on the floating island. She still had to go to the Heaven and Earth Book House to see if she could find some records of the 10 Extremes mountain. She remembered that the last time she saw the 10 Extremes mountain was also in the Heaven and Earth Book House. However, what was recorded on the bamboo slip was the real 10 Extremes mountain from ancient times. According to Ji Wujiang, that place was far more dangerous and complicated than the minor 10 Extremes mountain. The Heaven and Earth Book House was still quietly standing in a corner of Beyond Heaven City. Almost no one would find this place. Mengqi did not hesitate and walked into the Heaven and Earth Book House. As expected, there were no other guests inside. Mengqi did not remember that she had met other cultivators here. She did not pay too much attention to it. Mengqi now had a better understanding of the value of spiritual points. A book was worth 10 spiritual points. Furthermore, when one picked up the bamboo slips or jade slips to read, one would not know whether the book was useful or not. If one did not meet the owner of the Heaven and Earth Book House, that elusive senior, one might not be able to find the book one needed even after spending a few hundred spirit points. Therefore, most cultivators would not choose to come here at all. As Mengqi thought about it, she looked around. That old man was indeed not here. She was slightly disappointed and walked towards the floor that recorded the history of the 3 realms. Although the books in the Heaven and Earth Book House did not have names, one had to borrow them to know what the book was. However, it was not a mess. The books on each floor were almost the same category. The books that recorded the history of the cultivators in the 3 realms were on the same floor, but there were too many unofficial histories. If one read 10 books in a row, they might all be about some great heaven demon, the owner of the devil residence, or even some sect master of a powerful sect in the 3 realms. Little friend, you haven't come to my Heaven and Earth Book House for a long time. After Mengqi read the 7th book about a great heaven demon, she suddenly heard a familiar voice behind her. She was delighted and quickly turned around to look behind her. The owner of the Heaven and Earth Book House, who was wearing a white robe, was standing behind her and looking at her with a smile. Senior. Mengqi hurriedly bowed respectfully. I'm here to disturb you again. Not at all. The old man waved his hand and glanced at the bamboo slip in Mengqi's hand. Little friend, what book are you looking for? Senior. Mengqi took a deep breath. I want to find some books that record the ancient 10 Extremes mountains. 10 Extremes mountains. A hint of surprise flashed across the old man's eyes. You're a nascent soul? Congratulations, little friend. Thank you, senior. Mengqi was embarrassed. My cultivation talent is limited. I've embarrassed myself in front of you. What's cultivation talent? The old man smiled. He slowly walked through the bookshelves. When this old one was young, I was also the one with the worst cultivation talent in the clan. Those who looked down on me once said that this old one had tainted his own bloodline. Bloodline? Mengqi was not surprised. The cultivators in the 3 realms usually talked about cultivation talent. If one's talent was not good, then it was not good. However, the demon realm and the devil realm valued bloodlines more. If one was born with a great heaven demon royal family, the power given by the bloodline would be stronger than ordinary great heaven demons. After she knew that Yun Qingyan was probably the owner of the highest floating island in Heavens Beyond, she knew that Heavens Beyond might be more powerful and mysterious than most cultivators knew. It was not strange that there were shops opened by demon cultivators here. Meng Qi guessed that the shops of demon cultivators might not be open to everyone. She silently followed behind the old man and heard him say again. Talent, bloodline with a powerful inheritance, background. These might make you stronger than others when you embark on the path of cultivation. However, how far you can go and how high you can go on this path is not entirely dependent on talent. Yes, Meng Qi responded. I have a grandnephew. The old man continued. His bloodline talent is extremely powerful. It can be said that it's rare in our clan. Oh, Meng Qi nodded. The old man snorted and said. Not only is his talent amazing, but his cultivation is also much stronger than others. Our clansmen and some other clansmen who have a good relationship with us are also considered to be rich in beauties. But he's good. He's focused on cultivation. No matter how beautiful the beauties are, they can't distract him for 1,000 years. Meng Qi was stunned. She originally thought that this senior would tell a story about a person with outstanding talent who wasted his talent and eventually became a commoner. She didn't expect such a sudden turn of events. Meng Qi subconsciously asked, Senior, and then? It's infuriating to talk about it. When he was 100 years old, he had already caught up to my realm when I was 500 years old. Meng Qi. Later he progressed at a rapid pace. He was so powerful that the entire clan could only look up to him. I thought that if this continued, if this guy was really ambitious, he would probably unify the demon realm, and then the 3 realms. Fortunately, at this time he finally encountered his tribulation. The old man chuckled when he said this. He was clearly talking about his grandnephew. It was obvious that the other party had encountered a tribulation, but Meng Qi felt that he seemed to be quite happy. Would the old man be happy because he was jealous of his grandnephew's talent? Meng Qi didn't believe it. Sure enough, she heard the other party say, a cultivator's cultivation is considered to be going against the heavens. If everything goes too smoothly in the future. The old man suddenly closed his mouth when he said this. He was silent for a moment, then he took out a bamboo scroll from the bookshelf at the side and passed it to Meng Qi. He changed the topic somewhat abruptly. This is what you wanted, the scroll that recorded the ancient 10 Extremes Mountains. Thank you, Senior. Meng Qi took the bamboo slip and didn't ask what happened to the old man's grandnephew. She vaguely guessed who the other party was talking about. After all, outstanding talent was rare. If it was a demon cultivator, then it was actually very easy to guess. Meng Qi held the bamboo slip and couldn't calm down to read it immediately. She quietly looked at the old man and pursed her lips. There was a voice in her heart telling her that she should hurry up and read this bamboo slip. She shouldn't be distracted by other things. But it was related to him, not other things. Meng Qi pursed her lips again. She watched as the old man slowly walked past the tall bookshelf with his hands behind his back. She gritted her teeth and quickly followed him. Say, Senior. Meng Qi was very embarrassed. That grandnephew of yours. Is he really that powerful? Oh, he is quite powerful. The old man didn't seem to notice Meng Qi's expression and still walked forward slowly with his hands behind his back. He just gave a casual response and didn't continue talking. How is he powerful? Meng Qi waited for a while and quickly asked again. How is he powerful? The old man stopped and stood with his hands behind his back. He looked up at the ceiling of this floor of the study room. How should I put this? Meng Qi walked to his side and said, just give me an example. The old man nodded, but he still seemed to be in a difficult position. He thought for a while and then murmured, if we count according to our age, is it considered powerful to become the king of a clan shortly after reaching adulthood? Yes. Meng Qi quickly nodded vigorously. She had never heard Yin Qingyan mention her, and rarely heard others talk about the Yao Lord. The cultivators only knew that he was powerful. After all, when he took the position of Yao Lord, he was very young according to the age of Yao cultivators. Meng Qi knew the most about his strength. The most detailed information was actually what Chu Tianfeng showed her back then, when he killed the spiritual clone of the Burning Sky Palace Elder in the Yao realm. Other than that, Meng Qi really hadn't seen him fight. How did he become the king of a clan? Meng Qi asked again. How? The old man thought for a while. Those clansmen who didn't agree with him were all suppressed by his force. After they were beaten into submission, they willingly served him as their master. Mengqi. To be honest, she couldn't imagine it. Did Qin Yan's Henjun also have such a violent and tyrannical side? In her impression, he had always been elegant and handsome, patient and gentle. He was powerful, but he suppressed others with his force. She still couldn't imagine Yun Qingyan like that. However, when the old man said this, Mengqi couldn't help but imagine it. Among a group of great sky demons, the young Yun Qingyan was dressed in a white robe. He looked down on the audience, and everyone respected him. She slowly exhaled. She didn't know why, but she actually felt a little excited. She kind of wanted to be there and see Yun Qingyan with her own eyes. Mengqi stood in place for a while. When she came back to her senses from her imagination, the old man had already walked away with his hands behind his back. She quickly followed, hesitated for a moment, and asked casually, "Is it very dangerous to fight for the Yao Lord in the Yao realm?" "Of course it is," the old man said. "When the Yao Lord token appears, there are countless people who want it. When the great sky demons vie for the Fey Lord tokens, several heavens in the Fey world's 9 firmaments are often dark. All one can see is the great might of the great sky demons." He paused and said slowly, "The fight for the Yao Lord token is often fought to the death." Mengqi took a deep breath and subconsciously looked up at the sky. She forgot that they were in the Heaven and Earth bookhouse and couldn't see the highest floating island. Speaking of which, the Yao Lord token should appear again. Another bloody storm is coming. The old man shook his head, and his expression became a little melancholic. Mengqi's heart suddenly jumped. So they were going to fight for the Yao Lord token again? Then was it also related to the Yao Lord token that he suddenly appeared next to Cool Breeze Valley and suffered such a serious injury? Senior. Mengqi was silent for a long time and asked, "This sky beyond heaven?" She looked around and continued, "Is there a way to send things to the Yao realm?" The old man stopped again and looked at Mengqi with a smile. He asked, "What do you want to send over?" The smile in his eyes deepened as if he could see directly into one's heart. Mengqi didn't think much of it at first, but she was a little embarrassed by the old man's gaze. She turned her head slightly, and her cheeks inexplicably heated. "Actually, it's nothing. I don't know if it will be useful. I got some herbs earlier that can be used to refine the Nirvana pill. Although it might not be useful, the Nirvana pill, it was originally his. Maybe he likes to eat it." It was rare for Mengqi to be so hesitant. She tried hard not to look at the old man, but she could still feel his gaze on her. The Nirvana fruit can restore all of one's spirit energy when one is seriously injured. Mengqi took a deep breath and calmed herself down. It might be useful. Apart from that, she couldn't think of anything else that could help Yun Qingyan a little. In fact, even if it was the Nirvana fruit, Mengqi wasn't sure that Yun Qingyan would need it. After all, her cultivation level wasn't high enough, and the level of the pills she could refine wasn't high. Yun Qingyan might not need it. Mengqi just wanted to try her best to do as much as possible. Her left hand hanging by her side slowly clenched. Under the old man's smiling gaze, her heart beat faster and faster. She was afraid of being rejected, but she also faintly hoped that she would be rejected, because this meant that the other party might have a card up his sleeve, and didn't need these things. Mengqi's hand clenched tighter and tighter. She never knew that she would be so hesitant one day. In the past, she had always done what she set her mind on and acted according to her own ideas. She wasn't strong enough, but she had never been so worried about personal gains and losses. "Okay." The old man finally smiled. "I'll think of a way." Thank you." Mengqi breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't know if she was happy or worried. "Oh right." The old man suddenly said, "Do you know that there's a small 10 extremes mountain in the western lands Mirror Moon Heaven? It's also one of the branches of the ancient 10 extremes mountain that you're looking for?" Mengqi nodded. "I know. The ancient 10 extremes mountain has long disappeared. Only 4 branches are left." The old man continued, "Although they're not as dangerous and powerful as the ancient ones, they each have their own uses." Romance Novel Network, he said. If there's a chance, you might as well go to the small 10 Extremes mountain in the Mirror Moon Heaven. Maybe there'll be an opportunity. Thank you, Senior, for your guidance. Mengqi bowed to the old man. If you want to send the Nirvana pill to the demon realm, you can come back here again. The old man continued, but the small 10 Extremes mountain will open in 10 days. Don't miss the opportunity. He reminded. Just refine a few Nirvana pills. 1 pill is equivalent to 10 pills. Mengqi. Chapter 138. Mengqi looked at the old man as if she understood, not knowing what he meant. However, seeing that he was not particularly worried, she knew that even if Yin Qingyan was in danger, it should not be life-threatening. She sighed in relief, and immediately began to read the book that recorded the 10 Extremes mountain. Many Xiozha might have never heard of the ancient 10 Extremes mountain. It was said that tens of thousands of years ago, there was a great war between the ancient great powers. After the war, many great powers fell, and their inheritances were cut off. Some of the Xiozha sects that had once blossomed disappeared. There were also some legendary ancient and dangerous cultivation grounds that were razed to the ground under the power of those great powers that could destroy the world, and became extinct. This 10 Extremes mountain was one of them. From then on, there was no 10 Extremes mountain in the 3 realms. Instead, it was replaced by the Starfall Sea that was becoming more and more unfathomable. This was a record that Mengqi had seen in a book before. However, she did not know if it was true. After all, it was too long ago. That book was a conjecture made by a Xiozha senior from thousands of years ago based on what he knew about the 10 Extremes mountain. In fact, many Xiozha knew about the 10 Extremes mountain. There must be records of the 10 Extremes mountain in the sects that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. There must be legends about the 10 Extremes mountain among Yao Xiozha and demonic Xiozha. Mengqi was holding a book that recorded the 10 Extremes mountain in the Yao world. She read it quickly. That day in Jinghua Heaven, she heard Yin Shenbei say that after entering the little 10 Extremes mountain, no one would know what happened inside. People outside the little 10 Extremes mountain, even if you were a Mahayana Xiozha, would not know what happened inside the little 10 Extremes mountain. The 10 Extremes mountain was the same. Simply speaking, even if someone entered the 10 Extremes mountain and came out alive, they would not know what happened in the 10 Extremes mountain and what they experienced. This was also the reason why Yin Shenbei did not dare to let his disciples accompany his son in. No one knew what would happen in the 10 Extremes mountain. Without the rules of the sect, or even the constraints of morality, a person who was only equivalent to a Qi cultivator entering a place like the 10 Extremes mountain was basically going to die. Yin Shenbei did not dare to gamble. He only had one son. This son of his was so talented and outstanding, which made him extremely proud. Mengqi had finished reading the entire book. She held the bamboo scroll. Actually, this scroll was of very limited help to her, because it did not record anything about how to climb higher in the 10 Extremes mountains. Mengqi pondered for a moment and looked up. The old man in the Heaven and Earth bookhouse was leaning against a row of bookshelves. He held a jade slip in his hand, and was also reading a book. He noticed Mengqi's gaze and looked over with a smile. "Young friend, do you have any doubts?" He had always been very good to Mengqi, so he continued. "The old man is much older than Xiao friend. I ought to have seen more things in the world than Xiao friend. Little friend, if there's anything you don't understand, feel free to tell me and discuss it with this old man." "Thank you, Senior." Mengqi walked to his side. "Senior, do you really think that after leaving the 10 Extremes mountain, you won't remember anything?" She stood beside the old man and asked. This was what Mengqi was most curious about. She was a medical cultivator, and now she was also learning about formations. However, as far as she knew, whether it was medicine, formations, or spells, they were all unable to make people forget what happened during that period of time. Of course, the ancient powerhouses had the ability to reach the heavens and penetrate the earth. The things they could do were also unimaginable to Mengqi. "Oh." The old man smiled. "The old man has never entered the 10 Extremes mountain. The minor 10 Extremes mountain in the Mirror Moon Heaven is said to be a branch of the ancient 10 Extremes mountain. Perhaps it's possible. He said this, but in fact he did not directly answer Meng Qi's question. The old man paused and suddenly reached out his hand. A bamboo scroll flew into his hand. He handed the bamboo scroll to Meng Qi and said, "The records of the great battle at the end of the ancient era are more detailed here." Meng Qi nodded and took the bamboo scroll to read it seriously. In fact, she had seen records of that great battle in many books. In the book that the old man gave her, it recorded in detail how long the great battle lasted and the participating sects, demonic cultivators and demonic cultivators. Meng Qi's heart pounded as she read. Almost all the major sects in the Trichiliocosm were involved in that ancient battle. Medical cultivators and formation cultivators, who could still stand up to Dharma cultivators and sword cultivators at that time, were naturally involved. The heavenly demon royal family also participated in the battle. The masters of the various fiend residences and their subordinates were all brave and fearless. Countless people died in battle. However, what was recorded in the book was mostly the fall of these ancient powerhouses. The details of the battle were never mentioned. Meng Qi finished reading very quickly and asked in puzzlement, "Senior, why is there no record of the battle process?" "Because this ancient battle happened in the 10 Extremes Mountain," the old man said indifferently. The old man said indifferently, "So everyone only knows who entered the 10 Extremes Mountain and never came out." Later, the 10 Extremes Mountain went into seclusion, and the fallen star sea became increasingly vast. The ancient powerhouses disappeared, and people could only assume that they had fallen. Meng Qi nodded thoughtfully. "There's a legend in our clan that the 10 Extremes Mountain did not disappear, and these ancient powerhouses did not fall. After all, the powerhouses who could enter the 10 Extremes Mountain at that time were almost all Mahayana cultivators. They passed the trials of the 10 Extremes Mountain, and finally stepped into the void and ascended," the old man said with a smile. "No one knows what happened exactly." "Yes." Meng Qi nodded. "You must be careful," the old man said earnestly. "Yes," Meng Qi replied softly. The old man did not say whether the 10 Extremes Mountain was really like what people said. After leaving there, people would no longer remember what happened in the mountain. Meng Qi thought about it and did not have an answer. "Senior." She had stayed in the sky beyond heaven for a long time. Yen Shunbei said that the 10 Extremes Mountain would be opened in 10 days. Meng Qi still had a lot of preparations to do. She bid farewell to the old man. "Thank you, Senior. I should leave now. If you have time, come and chat with me more," the old man said. "Okay." Meng Qi nodded. She turned and walked out of the Heaven and Earth book house. The old man did not leave immediately. He just smiled and watched her disappear outside the door. The old man waved his sleeve casually, and the door of the Heaven and Earth book house slowly closed. He turned and stood with his hands behind his back. He looked up and said, "Come out." Behind the bookshelf on a higher level, a white-robed figure moved, and Yin Qingyan walked out slowly. When the old man faced Meng Qi, he was always smiling and amiable. He looked very kind. However, when he faced Yin Qingyan, his face quickly darkened, and he snorted. "She has the aura of our clan on her." Yin Qingyan's originally calm face suddenly turned red, and she looked a little embarrassed. "I almost went mad just now." "Humph," the old man snorted again, but he did not continue to dwell on this issue. "What do you think? Little 10 Extremes Mountain?" Yin Qingyan raised his head and looked up. No one knew what he was thinking. "Yes." He thought for a moment and said slowly, "Meng Qi can go." "Oh." The old man was curious. "Aren't you worried? She's only a nascent soul cultivator now. There are probably many nascent soul cultivators who can enter the 10 Extremes Mountain this time. If she goes, it'll be very dangerous. Also," he paused and said, "the 4 royal clans of the Heavenly Demon Clan can't go, but many other clans of the Heavenly Demon Clan can enter. The Demon Realm and the Demon Mansion will probably fight for it this time. Are you really not worried?" Yin Qingyan. Her cultivation talent is limited, but her progress is surprisingly fast. "The boy beside her is from the Demon Realm, right?" the old man said. "Yes." Yin Qingyan's expression changed slightly. When the old man mentioned other things, he had a nonchalant look. Now that he heard the old man mention Ji Wujiang, His expression finally changed slightly. The heaven and earth bookroom became quiet. Yin Qingyan reached out and picked up a jade scroll. Her slender fingers stroked the patterns on the jade scroll. Her eyes flashed slightly. It was obvious that she was unable to make a decision. Mengqi opened her eyes and exhaled slowly. She sat cross-legged on the bed. She had gained a lot from her trip to the sky beyond heaven this time. She bought many things that she needed. Before the 10 Extremes mountain opened, she could prepare for what was coming next. She was just about to look for Ji Wujiang. Since the other party had come for Little 10 Extremes mountain in Mirror Moon Heaven this time, then he definitely knew more things. Mengqi also knew that his cultivation base was definitely at the bottom of the lesser 10 Extremes mountain. Thus, he could only make more preparations before entering. Just as she was about to go out, the jade scroll in the sky beyond heaven suddenly vibrated. Mengqi was shocked. So fast. The things bought in the sky beyond heaven couldn't be taken away. Every town in the 3,000 worlds had a relay station in the sky beyond heaven. After the things bought in the sky beyond heaven arrived at the relay station, the buyer would be notified that they could go to the relay station to get the things they bought. Jingyue Heaven City naturally had one too. Mengqi originally thought that she would have to wait for 1 or 2 days. She didn't expect it to arrive so quickly. She didn't think much about it, and didn't call Ji Wujiang. She randomly found a disciple in Jingyue Heaven. Some of the bigger sects had teleportation formations that could send them directly to the city. Jingyue Heaven was naturally no exception. Mengqi was now considered a guest left behind by the sect master of Jingyue Heaven. That disciple quickly led her to the teleportation formation and said, "Dao friend, after you finish your business in the city, you can come back directly from the teleportation formation over there." Okay. Mengqi thanked him and stepped into the teleportation formation. In the blink of an eye, she had already appeared in Jingyue Heaven City. Mengqi didn't delay and walked straight to the relay station in the sky beyond heaven. As expected, the magic treasures and herbs she had just bought had arrived. Because there were a lot of them, those spirit herbs were directly placed in a storage brocade bag. She kept the things well. Although she was still surprised that she received them so quickly this time, this was a good thing for her. Mengqi didn't think much about it. After keeping the things, she prepared to return to Jingyue Heaven. Jingyue Heaven also had a courtyard in the city. The teleportation formation was set up in the courtyard. In addition, the city guarded by the number 1 magic cultivator sect in the 3,000 worlds was naturally more prosperous than most cities. Mengqi had already strolled here before. At this moment, she walked through the streets and alleys. There were rows of shops and houses on both sides of the streets. There was also an endless stream of people. Fanshu and Kanshu. There were ordinary people and cultivators. Everything seemed so harmonious. The relay station in Sky Beyond Heaven was in the west of the city. Jingyue Heaven's courtyard was in the south. From the relay station to the courtyard, Mengqi had to pass through the most prosperous area in the center of the city. There was also the largest restaurant in Jingyue Heaven City. The restaurant was 7 stories high. Of course, it couldn't be compared to the Sky Beyond Heaven building, but it was already quite luxurious. Even Mengqi couldn't help but look up when she passed by there. She wasn't a standard foodie, but if she had the means, she would still go to the most unique restaurant in the city when she passed by to try the specialties there. Especially now that Mengqi was really super rich. After this trip to Sky Beyond Heaven, she had a better understanding of her wealth. Actually, she couldn't be blamed previously. She spent too much time with Ji Wujiang. This guy didn't have money, but he didn't even care about Xian spirit stones. When he used them, he didn't soften his heart. Over time, Mengqi also seemed to have a wrong feeling about the value of Xian spirit stones. Clearly, less than a year ago, she was still a little cultivator who couldn't even take out 28-stage spirit stones and had to risk her life to buy a stalk of jackdaw grass. Mengqi didn't stop walking. This was the largest restaurant in Jingyue Heaven City. 1 9th-stage spirit stone was enough to eat the best dishes and drink the best aged wine. When she came out of Little 10 Extremes Mountain, she would also come and try it. The fragrance of wine and dishes came from the restaurant. Mengqi's lips curled up slightly. If she could come out alive. At this moment, There was a sudden clamor from the third floor of the restaurant. It seemed that there was some dispute. Mengqi didn't stop. Who knew that after she took a step, a shadow was cast in front of her eyes? There were cries of surprise from people all around, mixed with a few malicious curses. Someone behind her reminded loudly, "Miss, be careful." Mengqi hurriedly raised her head and saw a man in a green robe being thrown down from the window of the third floor of the restaurant in an extremely sorry state. The man who was thrown down was also a cultivator, but the spiritual fluctuations on his body were quite weak. Even Mengqi could feel that he should only be in qi refining stage. The person who threw him down obviously knew that he wouldn't die from the fall. He deliberately wanted to see him make a fool of himself and forcibly imprisoned his spiritual qi. Otherwise, even if he was just a qi refining stage cultivator, he wouldn't be injured at all if he fell from the third floor. When Mengqi raised her head, she just happened to see the young man struggling uncomfortably in the air. The person who threw him down deliberately played with him. He didn't let him land directly, but deliberately let him fall slowly. The man was battered and exhausted, but he still couldn't break free. Not only the people in the restaurant, but also the surrounding onlookers could see clearly. Ha 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 ha. There was a burst of complacent laughter from the restaurant. "Call me grandpa and beg for mercy. Then I'll let you go." Humph. Although the man in the air looked extremely battered, he only snorted coldly. Mengqi retreated a few steps and raised her head to look at the other party. The man who spoke on the third floor of the restaurant also looked quite young, but his cultivation was far higher than hers. He should be a spirit-severing stage cultivator. The man in the air was only in qi refining stage. No matter what, he couldn't break free from the other party's imprisonment. Mengqi originally saw that the spirit-severing stage cultivator on the third floor didn't really want to hurt the man, so she didn't intend to meddle in other people's business. Just as she was about to leave, the man on the third floor of the restaurant suddenly raised his hand. The man, who was originally struggling rather miserably, was suddenly hung upside down. His head was facing down and his feet were facing up. His face suddenly turned red. He was originally quite close to Mengqi. At this moment, his face was facing Mengqi. Although it was upside down, it could be seen that it was a rather young and very good-looking face. Mengqi was startled. She knew this person. Or rather, she knew him in her previous life. It couldn't be so coincidental, right? It had been a while since she met anyone related to Lu Qingran. Recently, Mengqi's mind was full of Yin Qingyan. She had almost forgotten about these things. At this moment, she was caught off guard and met this young man on the street. Her heart was filled with mixed feelings, and she was instantly stunned. "Kid." At this moment, the spirit-severing stage cultivator, who was playing with the young man, spoke again. "Next time, if you want to play the hero to save the beauty, you should first consider your own weight. Today, I'll teach you a small lesson. I only want your left arm. Next time, I won't be merciful." After that person finished speaking, he raised his hand again. The young man who was originally hanging upside down suddenly turned sideways. He was like a fish on a chopping board, completely unable to struggle. His entire body trembled, and he was about to fall down. According to that person, his left arm would definitely be broken. Mengqi was still struggling in her heart, but her body moved first. She still couldn't bear to watch someone else's arm being broken in front of her. "Junior sister Meng." At this moment, a woman's exclamation suddenly came from the third floor of the restaurant. "Junior sister Meng. Is that you?" That person screamed. "Hurry and save him. I beg you, hurry and save him." Mengqi. She had quietly raised her left hand, but that sharp woman's voice made her stiffen. "Oh." In the blink of an eye, the spirit-severing stage cultivator on the third floor of the restaurant raised his hand again. The young man who was suspended in the air happened to be blocking Mengqi. At this moment, he moved sideways, exposing her to the people on the third floor. "Mengqi." The window on the third floor of the restaurant could be completely opened. The cultivator was sitting by the window, looking down at Mengqi with interest. Beside him, Lu Qingran sat there with tears streaming down her face. Her face was pale, and her hair was a little messy. She was looking at Mengqi with a pleading face. "Junior sister Meng, please save him. I'm begging you." Lu Qingran said repeatedly. He's like this because he's trying to save me, junior sister Meng. She looked at Meng Qi as she spoke, and then looked at the person sitting next to her. You. She remembered that the person just called out Meng Qi. She was a little surprised and said, "Do you know him? Then I beg you let him go. I beg you." Meng Qi. Shut up. If Lu Qingran didn't talk too much, she would have quietly made a move when the man was thrown down. She could make the man look like he fell in a sorry state, but it wouldn't really break his arm. After all, the person who made the move had a higher cultivation than her. Meng Qi didn't want to get herself involved in saving someone's life. Junior sister Meng. Lu Qingran looked at Meng Qi timidly, called her softly, and didn't dare to speak again. It's really Meng Qi. The man sitting next to Lu Qingran smiled slightly. He raised his hand, and the man hanging in the air was put down. Meng Qi saw clearly that the other party's action this time was different from before. Sure enough, the man only fell and rolled on the ground, but he wasn't really injured. Since it's fellow Taoist Meng Qi, I'll give you face. The man laughed loudly. His figure shook slightly, and he flashed out from the third floor, standing in front of Meng Qi. Junior sister Meng. Lu Qingran looked at Meng Qi in disbelief. What did that person say just now? He said that because it was Meng Qi, he would give her face. She was crying and begging, but the other party was not moved at all. Why would a person with a heart of stone give Meng Qi face? Such a spirit-severing stage cultivator, who could be said to be a quasi-expert with one foot in the insightful emptiness realm. Why would he give Meng Qi face? Lu Qingran's head was full of doubts. She really didn't understand why junior sister Meng Qi not only had a group of supporters wherever she went, but also had such a big face. Meng Qi looked at the man who landed lightly in front of her warily. Her left hand was already touching her storage brocade pouch. She had just gone to the relay station in the sky beyond heaven, and now there was the 6th level magic weapon she had just bought in the brocade pouch. This person said that he was giving her face, but who knew if he was an enemy or a friend? Fellow Taoist Meng, don't be afraid. The person cupped his hands and bowed to Meng Qi. His attitude was much friendlier than before. He smiled and said, I came from the southern land. Fellow Taoist Meng, you might be more familiar with my junior brother. Meng Qi was startled. Qin Xiuma. The person smiled and said, It's my junior brother. The person didn't wait for Meng Qi to speak and said, I came to Moon Mirror Heaven under the orders of my master to find my junior brother. If fellow Taoist Meng knows where he is, can you tell me? Meng Qi didn't know this person, but she knew about the grudges between Qin Xiuma's sect and the sect. He was the most valued disciple in the sect, but he was betrayed by his close friend, and almost died in the Eastern Land due to qi deviation. Meng Qi knew that this person who claimed to be Qin Xiuma's senior brother wasn't the person who stabbed him in the back. She had seen that person in her previous life. Later, Qin Xiuma massacred his entire sect. At that time, Meng Qi was in the southern land. She was at that person's residence treating his pregnant wife who was about to give birth, but was poisoned by a strange poison. Therefore, she was sure that this senior brother wasn't Qin Xiuma's close friend who betrayed him. However, Meng Qi had a slight impression of him. In order to take back the position of the sect master, Qin Xiuma intimidated everyone in the sect with his martial strength. This senior brother should be one of the people he suppressed. This matter spread throughout the 3,000 worlds, and Qin Xiuma's name as the Little Demon King also spread at that time. Therefore, Meng Qi wasn't sure whether the senior brother was a good person or not. I don't know where he is, Meng Qi said lightly. After leaving the Eastern Land, we separated. Oh. The person raised his eyebrows and said with a smile. Then I may have to trouble fellow Taoist Meng to stay with us first. I think that my junior brother, who didn't even return to his sect for fellow Taoist Meng, will definitely rush to see you if he knows that fellow Taoist Meng is with us. Chapter 139. I'm Wei Yuanzhong of Cloud Peak. Qin Xiuma is my junior brother. The male cultivator was all smiles as he spoke, and his attitude towards Meng Qi was quite good. Meng Qi looked at him, and he also looked at Meng Qi with a smile on his face. He looked very relaxed, as if he was really just inviting her to be a guest. However, she knew that as long as she turned around and had the intention to run, he would immediately catch up. Meng Qi, on the other hand, was not particularly worried. This was Mirror Moon Sky City, the strongest sect for cultivators in the 3,000 worlds. Qin Xiuma's sect was naturally very strong in the southern land. Cloud Peak, which cultivated both sword and technique, was actually considered a large sect in the 3,000 worlds. However, it was still much weaker than Mirror Moon Sky. Meng Qi was now considered a guest invited by the Mirror Moon Sky sect master. If this Wei Yuanzhong really wanted to attack her in Mirror Moon Sky City, Yin Shunbei would probably not agree. The young male cultivator who was thrown down by Wei Yuanzhong just now slowly stood up at this time. Although he was not injured in the end, he was still thrown to the ground in a rather sorry state. At this time he slowly stood up, and there was a lot of dust on his green robe. His face was originally quite handsome, but his expression was haggard. Now that he was wearing a dust-stained robe, and a few strands of hair were scattered in front of his forehead, he looked even more dispirited. Lu Qingran had also jumped down from the restaurant at this time. She looked at Wei Yuanzhong warily, then looked at Meng Qi, and then hurried to the young male cultivator. "Are you okay?" Lu Qingran looked at the dust on his body, her face full of worry. "Are you hurt?" The male cultivator did not answer. His eyelids drooped slightly, but his gaze was looking at Meng Qi. Lu Qingran stood in front of him, her slender body blocking in front of him, and also looked at her former junior sister. Junior sister Meng. She murmured. Her lips opened, but she did not say anything for a long time. Meng Qi glanced at Lu Qingran. Her gaze was a bit cold. Although she did not say anything, Lu Qingran seemed to have been stabbed by her. Her face immediately turned red. She gritted her teeth and took a deep breath. Then, as if gathering her courage, she said, "Junior apprentice Sister Meng." Lu Qingran cupped her hands towards Meng Qi and saluted. "The incident just now was too sudden, so I had no choice but to ask Junior Marshal Sister Meng for help. All of this happened because of me. Please don't blame him." As she spoke, she moved to the side to better protect the young male cultivator behind her. This time Meng Qi didn't even look at Lu Qingran. All her attention was on Wei Yuanzhong. The other party simply crossed his arms in front of his chest and watched this scene with a smile, as if he was waiting to watch a good show. Everything. Lu Qingran looked left and right. Seeing that the two of them were ignoring her, she gathered her courage and said, "Everything started because of me. You too, fellow Taoist Meng, what do you think?" Wei Yuanzhong didn't let her finish her words. Or he didn't care about what Lu Qingran was doing at all. His gaze was fixed on Meng Qi from beginning to end. He even saw her raise her hand and place it on the storage brocade bag at her waist. "I definitely won't make things difficult for fellow Taoist Meng. It's just that Master has been looking for Junior Apprentice Brother for a long time, and is quite worried. As long as Junior Apprentice Brother appears, I naturally won't dare to make things difficult for fellow Taoist Meng wherever you want to go." Meng Qi couldn't see his cultivation level, but he was very clear about it. The other party was only at nascent soul realm first stage. Even if he had something to protect himself, it would be limited. He was already at spirit severing 9 realms, and was about to reach the great circle of the spirit severing realm. This time, in the 10 Extremes Mountain, he was also one of the cultivators who had a chance to reach the top. To be honest, not only did Wei Yuanzhong not put Meng Qi in his eyes, he also didn't put his junior apprentice brother Qin Xiuma, who was highly favored by Master. So what if he was a genius? So what if he had a promising future? Compared to them, he had a direct suppression of a large realm. The other party was really not enough to look at in front of him. If he could successfully reach the top of the 10 Extremes Mountain, then he would be the true number 1 person among this generation of disciples at Cloud Treading Peak. He would also be the only candidate for the future sect master. Wei Yuanzhong's gaze swept across Meng Qi's thin figure, and the corner of his lips raised slightly. No matter how much of a genius his junior apprentice brother was, he was probably like this Meng Qi, still struggling in the nascent soul realm. They were immersed in useless love, and had long been left far behind by him. He thought it through thoroughly and really didn't have any enmity towards Meng Qi. On the contrary, junior apprentice brother Qin, didn't even return to the sect in order to follow this girl. Wei Yuanzhong still had a good impression of Meng Qi. He watched as Meng Qi took out something from her storage brocade bag, and didn't take it too seriously. Anyway, she was just a nascent soul realm cultivator. She wouldn't turn the sky upside down in front of him. How could Meng Qi guess what was on Wei Yuanzhong's mind? She had already dug out all the things related to Qin Xiaoma in her memory, but in the end, she still couldn't remember who this Wei Yuanzhong was. However, Meng Qi couldn't be blamed. Qin Xiaoma had always been a man of few words. In the past, he wouldn't even say a word to her. What Meng Qi knew was that Qin Xiaoma didn't get along with his sect. The close friend who betrayed him was also from the same sect as him. Qin Xiaoma had been a genius before, otherwise he wouldn't have provoked the jealousy of his fellow sect members, and caused his cultivation to go berserk behind his back. After Meng Qi healed his internal injuries, he cultivated like a madman. In his life, other than Lu Qingran, there was only cultivation. In a short 2 years, his cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, and he became the true leader of the younger generation of Xiuzha. When Meng Qi was traveling the southern border, Qin Xiaoma had just returned to Cloud Treading Peak, and started to seize power. One man, one sword, one kill with each step. He bathed his former sect in blood, and stepped on the blood of his fellow sect members to sit on the seat of the sect leader of Cloud Treading Peak. The little Mo Lord became famous in one battle, and his name spread through the 3,000 worlds. At that time, Meng Qi was in the southern border, treating a woman who was about to give birth and was completely poisoned. It was there that she saw Qin Xiaoma again. Probably because he had gotten his revenge, he was in a good mood. In his last life, Qin Xiaoma didn't know that it was Meng Qi who had saved him, but he knew that Meng Qi was Lu Qingran's shimmy. So even though the person Meng Qi was saving was the wife of his close friend who had betrayed Qin Xiaoma, stabbed him in the back, and caused his cultivation to go berserk, he didn't hurt Meng Qi. He did not hurt Meng Qi and even allowed her to give birth to that woman's child successfully. He even saved that woman's life. Later, Qin Xiaoma took the child away. He was probably in a good mood at that time. He came for revenge, so he naturally wouldn't bring Lu Qingran with him, and let her see his bloody and murderous side. At that time, Qin Xiaoma probably didn't have anyone to talk to. Not only did he not hurt Meng Qi, but he also let her cure the poison and save the woman. Later, he even took her with him for a period of time, and would chat with her when he was free. Meng Qi's understanding of Cloud Treading Peak came from her conversations with Qin Xiaoma during that time. But after thinking for a long time, she still couldn't remember Wei Yuanzhong. Other than his close friend who had betrayed him, Qin Xiaoma was only willing to talk to his master. Meng Qi couldn't remember Wei Yuanzhong, but she remembered that Qin Xiaoma had said that after his close friend betrayed him, he would no longer have any friends at Cloud Treading Peak. Her expression didn't change. She moved her left little finger gently, and a small ball was already in her palm. It was one of the level 6 Dharma treasures she had just bought from Heavenly Sea Pavilion. This was the center of Moon Mirror Sky City, the most lively place with many people coming and going. It was probably because they lived in Moon Mirror Sky City all year round, and had the protection of the #1 Dharma cultivation sect in the 3,000 worlds. The residents of Moon Mirror Sky City loved to watch the show. In just a short while, there were already 3 layers of people inside and 3 layers outside. There were many people who were waiting to gossip. Meng Qi looked around. Wei Yuanzhong was still standing in place, not worried at all. He was just a nascent soul cultivator, and a nascent soul cultivator from a small sect. Even if he could take out a Dharma treasure, it would only be level 4 or level 5 at most. Wei Yuanzhong really didn't care about level 5 Dharma treasures. His eyes flashed slightly. Meng Qi had already moved. With a light cha sound, a cloud of mist suddenly rose from her hand. The fog quickly spread out, covering everything in the surroundings. Wei Yuanzhong still watched with a smile. The fog summoned by a level 5 Dharma treasure couldn't block the eyes of a cultivator who was about to reach the great perfection of the spirit severing stage. He could wait for Meng Qi to run a few steps before catching up. This was also giving face to Meng Qi. He really didn't have any enmity towards this Meng Qi. After all, The other party was recognized by the last profound realm great doctor of the ancient era, Lin Yan. He was the only medical cultivator in thousands of years. He had to give this face, huh? The fog spread too quickly, and quickly covered all the streets and alleys around the restaurant. Wei Yuanzhong hadn't finished his thought yet. He was leisurely waiting for Meng Qi to run a few steps first, and then he would quietly follow and give her enough face when the fog swallowed him like a tide. In that instant, the fog not only blocked Wei Yuanzhong's vision, but also sealed his consciousness. Wei Yuanzhong couldn't see anything, and couldn't sense where Meng Qi was at this time. This is... He instantly reacted. That girl has a level 6 Dharma treasure in her hand. Wei Yuanzhong really didn't expect that Meng Qi, who came from a small sect like Cool Breeze Valley, would have a level 6 Dharma treasure as soon as she reached Yuanying. Not to mention her, even Wei Yuanzhong himself couldn't take out a level 6 Dharma treasure. His soul-bound Dharma treasure was only level 5 right now. Wei Yuanzhong stilled, and quickly rushed towards Meng Qi's position in his memory. He knew that the other party wouldn't foolishly stand in place and wait for him to catch her, so he still had a glimmer of hope. In the blink of an eye, Wei Yuanzhong had already rushed to the place where Meng Qi had just stood. There really was someone there. He was overjoyed and didn't care about anything else, grabbing the other person's wrist. Ah! The person who was caught by him cried out in alarm. Her delicate and timid voice carried a hint of panic. It's you. Wei Yuanzhong recognized the voice and could not hide his disappointment. Where's Meng Qi? The person he caught was Lu Qingran. She didn't know what had happened. When the fog had suddenly risen, she had unconsciously wanted to run towards Meng Qi shimmy. But the fog had spread so quickly that she couldn't see anything. Even her consciousness seemed to have been sealed by the fog. Something tripped her under her feet. Lu Qingran stumbled forward a few steps. Just as she steadied herself, someone grabbed her wrist. Then Wei Yuanzhong, who had grabbed her, let go of her and looked for Meng Qi again. Meng Qi. Meng Qi. Meng Qi again. Lu Qingran gently bit her lower lip, but her eyes were a little red. Why did shimmy Meng Qi suddenly seem to have become the center of everyone's attention? Those male cultivators who couldn't help but be amazed by her appearance in the past only knew Meng Qi now. Clearly she was still that dull, always expressionless, boring, silent, and mediocre shimmy Meng Qi shimmy. Lu Qingran herself didn't spend much time cultivating. She just got a better cultivation method than the one in Cool Breeze Valley. She casually practiced it, and now she was already a nascent soul cultivator. Clearly, she was not inferior to Shimmy Meng at all. Lu Qingran's eyes were filled with fog, and she heard Wei Yuanzhong ask sternly again, "Where's Meng Qi?" I don't know," she murmured. "Just now I was standing in the same place. Someone pushed me, and then ran behind me." Her face heated up, but the fog hadn't dispersed yet, and no one could see her appearance at this moment. Maybe that was Shimmy Meng. As Lu Qingran's voice fell, the fog gradually dispersed. Her eyes became clear again. Those people who came to watch the show were sharp-eyed, and they immediately noticed that 2 people were missing. And they were the 2 most important people. Meng Qi and the man who was thrown down from the restaurant by Wei Yuanzhong had already disappeared in the fog. Wei Yuanzhong looked around. This was the most prosperous area of Jingyue Heaven. There were many people here, and it was easy to find Meng Qi even if she blended into the crowd. "Why did you run?" Wei Yuanzhong was also helpless. "I didn't mean any harm," he murmured, and then glanced at Lu Qingran. "You can go." Lu Qingran looked at him blankly. "You can go." After Wei Yuanzhong finished speaking, he turned around and walked back into the restaurant. But I... Before Lu Qingran could finish her sentence, Wei Yuanzhong had already entered the restaurant, and she couldn't even see his back. She stood blankly on the busy street. Did he just let her leave like this? Because she was already completely worthless? So the other party saved her from the beginning, brought her by his side, and brought her back to Jingyue Heaven City just for Shimmy Meng Qi? Lu Qingran was increasingly at a loss. She had never been so at a loss. All around her were strangers. When they passed by her, they might take a second look at her, but no one would stop for her. In the end, they were all strangers who had nothing to do with her. And those people who were once related to her had already left one by one, gradually drifting further and further away, never turning back to look at her again. That's right. Lu Qingran reacted at once. Although he was only at the qi condensation stage, where was the male cultivator who was willing to protect her? Where did he go? She turned around, but she didn't see that person's figure. Lu Qingran looked around. For a moment, she actually didn't know what she should do. This was clearly a crossroads, but she had completely lost her direction. At the same time, about 7 or 8 streets away from the restaurant where the incident happened, Meng Qi suddenly stopped. The green-robed man who was thrown out of the restaurant just now was standing beside her. As long as she lowered her head, she could see the other party's slender fingers tightly holding her wrist. You. She stopped, and the male cultivator also stopped. He turned back, his eyelids still lowered, his expression indifferent, and he still looked so listless, as if he didn't care about anything. Meng Qi, however, stared at his handsome side profile. He was thrown so pathetically, but he didn't look angry. Meng Qi suddenly stopped, but he didn't ask why. But just now, when Meng Qi released the spell attached to the magic weapon, the fog suddenly rose. Before anyone could react, he had already quickly reached Meng Qi's side and said to her, "Come with me." Meng Qi sized up the other party. The magic weapon she used was a 6th-level magic weapon, and the spell attached to it was Bewildering Trace. When the fog rose, it didn't only block people's vision, but also their divine sense. Unless they were insightful emptiness realm cultivators, or the owner of Meng Qi's magic weapon, no one could see their surroundings clearly in the fog. But this qi cultivator didn't seem to be trapped at all. He took Meng Qi silently and accurately through the streets and alleys, and arrived here in just a moment. Thinking of this, she gently shook her wrist. The young male cultivator opened his hand and let go of her. "Go through this street, turn left, and you'll reach Jingyue Heaven's villa." He finally spoke. His voice was very pleasant, like the most melodious sound of a flute. But just like his expression, it was listless, as if he had lost interest in everything in this world. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Meng Qi's response, turned around and walked slowly in the opposite direction of Jingyue Heaven's villa. The young male cultivator was quite tall, but he was too thin. He wore an ordinary-sized green robe, but it seemed empty on his body. As soon as he walked, the wind lifted his robe sleeves, and even he seemed like he would be blown away by the wind at any time. He walked slowly with his hands clasped behind his back. He was just a qi cultivator, and he was almost humiliated by being thrown from a restaurant and breaking his arm. But he didn't care at all, and his bearing was still calm. Meng Qi looked at his back quietly, and suddenly called out, "Fellow Taoist Yan." The green-robed man's footsteps paused slightly, but he didn't stop. He just said faintly with his back facing Meng Qi, "You and I don't know each other. You helped me just now, and I also helped you. We're even now, so why do we need to know each other's identities?" DDXS. Meng Qi couldn't help but smile. "I'm afraid that won't do," she said. "Ha!" The young male cultivator laughed a little self-deprecatingly, and finally stopped. He didn't look back, and his back was still facing Meng Qi. He asked, "Are you a medical cultivator?" "Yes," Meng Qi responded. "Did my father invite you?" "No." Meng Qi shook her head. "Right now, I'm only a nascent soul cultivator, and my medical skills haven't reached Realm 5. Your father wouldn't invite me. But you're Meng Qi." The young male cultivator finally turned around. His expression still looked a little tired, but his eyes became bright. He was good-looking, but he was a little tired just now. But when he straightened his back, and his eyes became bright, he looked a little bit more like the #1 genius of the younger generation in Western Jia. "Yan Xian." He looked at Meng Qi and said, "Fellow Taoist Yan." Meng Qi bowed to him. Yan Xian also returned the bow. He was only a qi cultivator, but no one dared to truly underestimate him. This young man who looked to be in his 20s was a true genius cultivator of Western Jia. If people like Chu Tianfeng and Qin Xioma were geniuses, then Yan Xian was a genius among geniuses. He reached core formation at the age of 11, nascent soul at the age of 13, spirit severing at the age of 17, and reached profound emptiness at the age of 22. Meng Qi was also 20 years old this year. And only with Ji Wujiang's help did she barely reach nascent soul. She was the kind of person who didn't have much talent for cultivation, but she definitely wasn't stupid. She was just one of the ordinary cultivators in the 3,000 worlds, and naturally couldn't be compared to these geniuses. Of course, the current Yan Xian was only a qi cultivator, and wasn't even as good as Meng Qi. It could be said that the vast majority of cultivators, no matter if they had talent or not, as long as they worked hard, they would more or less be able to reach qi cultivator perfection, and then foundation establishment. But Yan Xian probably couldn't. This young sect master of Jingyue heaven naturally wasn't trash. In the past, to stop the invasion of the demon world, he guarded the boundary crack alone for 3 days and 3 nights. When the reinforcements arrived, he was relieved to let his exhausted self pass out. But unfortunately, his Naiden was corroded by the demonic energy and the boundary power, and was damaged to the point of almost collapsing, so he returned to Qi cultivator perfection. His spiritual C had already returned to Qi cultivator perfection, and his spiritual energy was only about the same as a Qi cultivator. But after all, he was once a profound emptiness powerhouse, and he still had experience, so in fact he should still be considered a profound emptiness cultivator. So the fog that could block Wei Yuanzhong's vision was like nothing in his eyes, so he could so accurately lead Meng Qi through the streets and alleys, and come here. Meng Qi looked into Yan Xian's eyes, and the other party was also looking at her. Fellow Taoist Meng doesn't seem to be a warm-hearted person who likes to meddle in other people's business. Yan Xian suddenly raised the corner of his mouth. Meng Qi used a magic weapon to summon the fog to cover Wei Yuanzhong's eyes, and she didn't have the intention to take her senior martial sister away. But he also saw clearly just now that when he was about to fall, Meng Qi's hand was already raised, so at least he wouldn't be crippled. "I'm not," Meng Qi said, "but I want to enter the Lesser 10 Extremes mountain." Her tone was calm, as if she was going to eat. "And I want to reach the top, and I want to leave the Lesser 10 Extremes mountain alive." "Yan Xian, what does that have to do with me?" he asked. Meng Qi said, "You will enter the Lesser 10 Extremes mountain with me." "I won't," Yan Xian said. "You will." Meng Qi casually touched her storage brocade bag, and took out the magic weapon that Yan Shenbei gave her. "This was given to me by Sect Master Yan, and I also need his help, so I promised him that I will bring you in, and heal your injuries. Your tone is not small." Yan Xian looked coldly at Meng Qi. "You just said that you're only a nascent soul cultivator, and your medical skills are only at Realm 4. I'm about to reach Realm 4 consummation and will soon reach Realm 5. When I leave the Lesser 10 Extremes mountain, my medical skills will reach Realm 6, Meng Qi said. "Ha!" Yan Xian laughed lightly and didn't say anything. "Even if I didn't meet you here today, I would still visit young Sect Master Yan." Meng Qi said again, "We have to cooperate." Chapter 140. Meng Qi's tone was so certain that Yan Xian couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He gradually put away the lethargy on his face and looked much more serious than before. He quietly looked at Meng Qi. The green-robed female cultivator had a slender figure and an elegant face. Her eyebrows were light like willow leaves, and there were not many traces of makeup on her white and clean face. Meng Qi's long black hair was casually tied up and pinned by a green jade hairpin. Only 2 blood-red beads hanging from her small earlobes added some color to her. Otherwise, in Yan Xian's eyes, Meng Qi looked too plain. He stared at Meng Qi for a moment, then turned and walked in the opposite direction of the Mirror Moon Heaven Resort. Just by looking at his movements, one could not tell that he had the intention to cooperate with Meng Qi at all. Meng Qi was not angry and stepped forward to follow him. "Why are you following me?" Yan Xian did not stop and glanced at her casually. "Mirror Moon Heaven Resort is over there, aren't you going back?" His tone became a little indifferent again. "Yes." Meng Qi responded casually and said, "I have checked some records of the 10 Extremes mountain, but no one knows what will happen after entering the 10 Extremes mountain. Of course, even the Mirror Moon Heaven." Yan Xian subconsciously continued. Halfway through, he felt that something was wrong and suddenly shut up. "I am not interested." Meng Qi made another yes sound and continued. I just went to the sky beyond heaven and bought some things I need. I am a medical cultivator, and young sect master is a spell cultivator. As she spoke, she took out another magic treasure from her storage brocade bag and said, "There is a spell attached to it. It is a level 6 magic treasure and a level 6 spell. If I use it, it can also have the power of level 6, so I was able to block that person just now." Meng Qi did not mean to do this. Yan Xian, however, chuckled. He didn't look much older than Meng Qi, but the lingering dejection on his body made him look a little lethargic. At this moment he suddenly smiled, and his eyebrows relaxed. His originally good-looking appearance suddenly seemed to shine, and even the street seemed to brighten up. Wei Yuanzhong. Meng Qi had already recalled the name of that cloud-treading peak disciple, who was also Qin Xiuma's senior martial brother. He is a spirit-severing cultivator. This time he will also enter the 10 Extremes mountain. He can be considered our opponent. Meng Qi played with the small magic weapon in his hand and said, "In other words, this magic weapon is useful to him." "So what?" Yan Xian said a little unhappily. "What's the use of just slipping away under his nose?" He asked. "You can't be thinking that we can avoid the eyes of others and successfully reach the top like this, right? If the 10 Extremes mountain was so easy, my father wouldn't have." When he said this, he suddenly shut his mouth. Obviously, he didn't want to mention this matter again. Meng Qi smiled slightly. "I don't think so." She paused and then said, "But I have 9 Realm 6 talismans like this." Yan Xian. Even the young sect master of Mirror Moon Heaven was shocked. Yan Xian stopped walking and examined Meng Qi. 9? He didn't dare to believe it. Realm 6 talismans were not something rare in the eyes of the young sect master of the number 1 spell cultivation sect in the 3,000 worlds. But 9? Who would bring 9 talismans of the same level with them for no reason? This kind of talisman, other than its own use, usually had a spell attached. Although it was used unexpectedly, it was indeed quite powerful. But in a battle of life and death, this thing definitely could not compare to the soul-bonded talismans of Xiuzha. Meng Qi explained seriously, "I have just reached Yuanying and am a medical cultivator." She didn't say more, but Yan Xian already understood. He continued to walk forward in silence. After a moment he suddenly said, "You are telling me your trump card so quickly. Are you not worried about me? If I also go to that 10 Extreme mountain, we may be opponents." "We are not a match," Meng Qi said. Oh, Yan Xian did not stop walking. He was clearly very familiar with this place. He was born in Mirror Moon Heaven and grew up in Mirror Moon Heaven. Naturally, he was not unfamiliar with this Mirror Moon Heaven city. However, the two had walked from the center of the most prosperous city to the outskirts of the city. Even the most prosperous city would have a less glamorous side. The place they were passing should be where the poorer people of Mirror Moon Heaven City lived. It was normal for the young sect master of Mirror Moon Heaven to be familiar with the city that the sect guarded. However, in such a slum, he still acted as if he had returned to his own home. He walked forward almost without hesitation. Every step he took was without hesitation, which was a bit unusual. No matter what, he was a cultivator of energy, and the only son of the sect master of Mirror Moon Heaven. In the Trichiliocosm, as long as one was a cultivator, they would always live better than ordinary people. When Meng Qi was in Cool Breeze Valley, he knew that most of the disciples in the sect would only be foundation establishment cultivators for their entire lives. However, with their foundation establishment cultivation and the medical skills they learned in Cool Breeze Valley, it was enough for them to live a good life for the rest of their lives. Meng Qi did not ask any further. She just quietly followed behind Yan Xian, following him through a few alleys that were obviously much dimmer. Then they walked into a very ordinary, even a little shabby little tavern. It was still daytime and not mealtime. There were not many people in the wine shop. There was only one room in the wine shop. There were 7 or 8 tables placed in the wine shop. The tables looked clean and tidy, but they still looked a bit old. At this moment, there were only 2 tables of people sitting inside. When they saw Yan Xian and Meng Qi come in, they all looked up at them. The owner of the wine shop also saw the two and quickly came up to greet them. It was a woman about 30 years old. She was quite beautiful. Her plain clothes could not hide her charm. She smiled warmly at Yan Xian. Young Master Yan, you haven't been here for a few days. Yes. Yan Xian also smiled at her. In front of Meng Qi, he always looked listless and world-weary, but in front of this wine shop's lady boss, his smile was very gentle. There have been some things recently, Yan Xian said politely. The lady boss looked at Meng Qi, who was following beside Yan Xian. Is this your friend? He is also a little immortal. Ordinary people in the Trichiliocosm, usually called cultivators, immortals. She looked up and down at Meng Qi curiously. A sly smile appeared in her eyes. She greeted them warmly. Please sit. This way, please. As the lady boss spoke, she led Meng Qi and Yan Xian to the brightest table in the shop. The wine and dishes were quickly served. They were ordinary side dishes and a pot of ordinary osmanthus wine. Compared to the wine brewed with spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs in Rosy Lane, it was naturally incomparable. The lady boss warmly poured a cup for each of them. Even though they had not drunk it yet, Meng Qi could smell the pungent smell of alcohol wafting over. She was not very good at drinking, but Yan Xian did not mind. He picked up the cup and drank it in one gulp. There were other people in the shop, and the lady boss was also guarding at the side. Meng Qi could not continue talking about the Shijua mountain. She picked up her chopsticks, picked up a shrimp and ate it. Although it was not very big, it was sweet and fresh with a faint tea fragrance. It was very refreshing. The lady boss, who had not left, wiped her hands on her apron. The nervous expression on her face relaxed this time. She smiled and said, Please enjoy. Call me if you need anything. Okay. Meng Qi nodded at her. Sorry to trouble you. Wait. Yan Xian suddenly said, Lady boss, didn't you say that your son was sick a few days ago and didn't get better after seeing many doctors? He pointed at Meng Qi and said, She is a medical cultivator. You can try to beg her. Ah. The lady boss hurried back, her face full of surprise. This young immortal is really, but this, she was obviously a little embarrassed. Even Yan Xian was familiar with her because he often came to her shop to drink. In their eyes, cultivators were people from a completely different world from them. Even though Yan Xian said so, looking at Meng Qi's cheeks that were as white as jade, the lady boss nervously wiped her hands on her apron again. She opened her mouth and then closed it again. For a moment, she did not know what to say. Young immortal. The lady boss hesitated for a moment, but still opened her mouth and said, My son. Her words were intermittent. She could not help but look at Yan Xian, hoping that he could help her. Take me to have a look first, okay? Meng Qi put down his chopsticks, stood up, and asked. Oh, okay. The lady boss was overjoyed and replied, This way, please. As she spoke, she led Meng Qi to the back of the tavern. In front of her tavern was the shop, and behind it was the place where they lived. In fact, the place was not too small. It was neatly and clean, similar to the tavern. Although the things were a little old, the owner obviously loved this place very much. Every blade of grass and every object was carefully taken care of. Here, young immortal, please. The lady boss said and led Meng Qi into a room. As soon as the door was opened, a strong smell of medicine came out. The windows in the room were closed, and a person was lying on a small bed in the corner of the room. Young immortal. The lady boss had already walked to the bedside and turned to look at Meng Qi nervously and expectantly. My surname is Meng. Meng Qi said, You can call me Dr. Meng. Yes, Dr. Meng. The lady boss quickly responded. Meng Qi had already walked to the bedside and looked at the child lying quietly on the bed. His eyes were closed, and his cheeks were so thin that they were completely sunken. His hair was a little withered and yellow, and the skin on his face was also sallow. His lips were almost completely pale. There was a strong smell of medicine on his body. Obviously, he had taken a lot of medicine during this period. When the lady boss greeted the customers in front, she had a warm and generous smile on her face. At this time, when she returned to her child, her eyes turned red. Dr. Meng, she called Meng Qi again, and tears flowed down first. Meng Qi stood by the bed and reached out to press the child's wrist. The child's wrist was also very thin, and his skin was cold and dry. If his stomach was not still rising and falling slowly, he would look no different from a dead person. Meng Qi could feel the child's pulse, which was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. It was very strong, but compared to the child's terminally ill appearance, it was very abnormal. Before he got sick, did he go out of the city? Meng Qi asked. Dr. Meng, my son is only 11 years old this year. The lady boss said. Although he is a little naughty, he has always been obedient. I told him not to go out of the city, so he should not have gone out. When Meng Qi heard this, he thoughtfully turned his head to look at the door. Yan Xian also followed, but he did not enter the room. He just leaned against the door and looked lazily at Meng Qi. What? He raised his eyebrows. Is it very troublesome? He did not doubt that Meng Qi could cure the lady boss's son. After all, he was a nascent soul cultivator, a realm 4 consummation medical cultivator. He should be able to cure an ordinary person's illness. At most, it would be a little troublesome. Yan Xian himself was not a medical cultivator, but Jingyue Heaven was a sect that had existed since the ancient era. As the young sect leader, he knew more. No matter if it was the body or ability of Xiuzha, they were stronger than normal people. This also meant that their body's ability to withstand the pressure was stronger. In other words, the methods that medical Xiu could use to treat Xiuzha might not be suitable for normal people, because they might not be able to endure it. Yan Xian looked at Meng Qi. Meng Qi was also looking at him. He raised his eyebrows and did not speak. The little 10 Extremes mountain would open in 10 days. This girl seemed determined to get it, even preparing so many 6th grade talismans. She also said that she was going to come find him. Clearly, she was preparing for the little 10 Extremes mountain in this short period of time. If it would be more troublesome to save the lady boss's child, she might not be willing to act. After all, even if she was recognized by the great Dr. Lin Yan, it was just the life of a normal person. He might not care. Yan Xian looked at Meng Qi. The corner of his lips also rose slightly. His smile gradually became sarcastic. As expected, she did not want to act to save people, because the most important thing now was the 10 Extremes mountain. He was injured by a emotio. Meng Qi said faintly. If he really never left Jingyue Heaven City, then the city's seal formation most likely has a crack. Emotio could not come to the 3,000 fields by themselves. They could only find a crack in the barrier, or a powerful person could find a way to open a passage. However, that would require a great price and would cause a great commotion. It was impossible for Jingyue Heaven not to detect it. Only during the war between the two fields would the powerful people do such a thing. Yan Xian's expression became more serious. Meng Qi let go of the hand on the child's wrist. He reached out and lifted the child's upper eyelid. The whites of the eyes should be white. However, at this time, they were filled with blood vessels and looked exceptionally vicious. Meng Qi gently turned his face. There was a faint line of blood at the corner of his eye. It flowed down the skin in front of his ear, and finally disappeared into his neck. She reached out and pressed the child's chin. She let go of his collar and let him turn sideways. The line of blood flowed all the way down from his neck, and disappeared under his collar. She let go of her hand. No wonder ordinary doctors were helpless. Ordinary first realm and second realm medical cultivators probably could not do anything either, especially when the other party was a child in his teens. Meng. Dr. Meng. The tavern owner looked at Meng Qi's silence, and was extremely nervous. Can my child be saved? Yes. She nodded. Thank God. The tavern owner heaved a sigh of relief. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Dr. Meng. She suddenly looked at Meng Qi even more nervously. This young medical cultivator's expression was somewhat grave. Is it? The tavern owner swallowed nervously and asked. Is it very difficult? Is it? She staggered to the side, opened the cabinet, and took out a small wooden box. I still have some spirit stones. As the tavern owner spoke, she walked to Meng Qi with the box of spirit stones. She nervously opened the lid and asked carefully, Do you think these are enough? Before Meng Qi could speak, she quickly said, If not, I can borrow more. Or, my tavern is also worth some money. Dr. Meng. As she spoke, she grabbed Meng Qi's hand, and was about to kneel down. "Please, I beg you, you must save my son. I beg you." Meng-Chi sighed softly and reached out to help the tavern owner up. "I will try my best." She turned to look at Yan Xian, and then at the wooden box. There were a lot of spirit stones in the box, but they were all first-grade spirit stones. Yan Xian raised his eyebrows again. First-grade spirit stones. Then he watched as Meng-Chi grabbed a handful of spirit stones from the box and generously put them into her storage brocade bag. "These are enough," she said without counting how many spirit stones she had grabbed. "Madam," Meng-Chi said to the tavern owner, "he is not sick, he is injured. It's just that he is not a cultivator and has been injured for a long time, so it is not easy for him to recover." I know. The tavern owner nodded repeatedly. "Do you need us to do anything? Dr. Meng, just tell us, we will definitely do it." "Okay." Meng-Chi nodded. "I will tell you in detail when the time comes." Her tone was still calm. The injury was indeed a little troublesome, but it was not troublesome for Meng-Chi. She was a medical cultivator who was almost at the peak of the 4th grade, and now she had a lot of spirit stones. She had just bought a lot in the outland, so she did not lack spiritual medicine. Immediately, Meng-Chi asked the child's mother to leave first and waved her hand to close the door. Instead, Yan Xian stepped in and pulled a chair to sit down. Meng-Chi did not speak to him. She raised her hand and took out a silver needle from the brocade bag. The tip of the needle flashed and sank into the child's wrist. Wuxia. Calm Meng-Chi flicked her fingers again, and the 5-spirit cauldron appeared beside her. She did not delay much and threw 3 or 4 spiritual herbs into the 5-spirit cauldron. Meng-Chi turned to look at Yan Xian and said, "Do you have spirit stones?" Yan Xian was stunned and asked, "How much do you need?" 1 8th grade spirit stone and 10 5th grade spirit stones, Meng-Chi said. Yan Xian was stunned again. No matter how injured he was and how much his cultivation had regressed, he should be able to take out these spirit stones. Yan Xian handed the spirit stones needed by Meng-Chi to her, and she put the 8th grade spirit stone under her natal cauldron. The spirit stone made a soft sound, and spiritual energy overflowed. The bottom of the cauldron flashed, and Meng-Chi took out a small bottle and poured some water into the 5-spirit cauldron. After a while, the room was filled with a medicinal fragrance. The slightly bitter and astringent medicinal smell dispelled the strong medicinal smell from before. The medicinal liquid in the small cauldron boiled, and finally a small bottle of emerald green medicinal liquid was formed. Meng-Chi bent over, picked up the child, and let him sit against the head of the bed. She sat down cross-legged across from the other, and formed a spell with her right hand, and gently pressed it on the child's left eye. She opened the medicine bottle with her left hand, and put the bottle in front of the child's mouth. A drop of emerald green liquid was sent into the child's mouth. Meng-Chi took back the medicine bottle, closed her eyes, and did not speak. The child of the wine shop owner's family had been injured by a demonic cultivator, and he had not been directly injured. It was probably just that when the other had attacked someone else, the residual power of the spell had swept over the child. Otherwise he would have died when he was injured. If the one injured was a Xiuzha, then it would be much simpler. For Meng-Chi, it was just an ordinary internal injury. In fact, he only needed a single pill to heal himself. But the other was not a Xiuzha. His body was much weaker than Xiuzha, and his meridians could not withstand too much Ling energy. Adding on that he had been injured for too long, and his body was very weak. So for Meng-Chi, it was much more troublesome, and she had to spend more time. After 6 whole hours, Meng-Chi finally opened her eyes. The room was still quiet. Yan Xian was still sitting on the chair near the door, as though he had not moved. It was dark outside the window. There was a fist-sized pearl on the table next to Yan Xian. The pearl was bright, and lit up the entire room, but it was not too dazzling. Yan Xian used the light of the pearl to dazedly look at Meng-Chi. At the start, the corners of his lips had been slightly raised with a hint of scorn. Slowly, the scorn faded. His gaze flashed, and his expression became dazed. Seeing that Meng-Chi finally opened her eyes, he turned his head away in a rather awkward manner. He was afraid that the other party would see that he had been looking at her for so long. Meng-Chi did not look at him at all. The child suddenly let out a soft moan. His body swayed a few times, and he opened his eyes in a daze. "Mother!" he called out vaguely, and fell towards Meng-Chi. Meng-Chi reached out to support him, and carefully laid him down on the bed. She flicked her sleeves, and the door opened again. The proprietress who had been waiting outside the door was originally restless, and was anxiously pacing back and forth in front of the door. When she heard the door open, she suddenly stopped and turned to look at Meng-Chi. Meng-Chi smiled at her and nodded slightly. "Ugh!" Before the proprietress could speak, tears fell down. "Xiaolu!" she called out in a choked voice, and rushed in with quick steps. The proprietress even forgot to thank Meng-Chi. She rushed to the bed and knelt down. "Xiaolu!" She reached out and gently stroked her son's hair. "Mother!" The child slowly opened his eyes again. His gaze was still blank, but he slowly opened his mouth and called out, "Xiaolu!" The proprietress's tears fell even faster. This was the first time that her son had woken up and recognized her after he fell ill. She choked and could not say a word. After a while, she finally seemed to come back to her senses, and wanted to thank Meng-Chi. The pearl on the table in the room had disappeared. The oil lamp had lit up at some point, and the flickering flame was swaying, but there was no one there. There was a piece of paper under the oil lamp on the table, and a small green porcelain bottle. The paper clearly stated how to take the medicine, and what to do next. The handwriting was clear, and it was left by Meng-Chi. At this time, Meng-Chi and Yanxian had walked a long way side by side. The sky was already dark, and the night enveloped the entire Moon Mirror City. Tens of thousands of lights were lit in the city, and it looked so peaceful and quiet. The night wind blew Meng-Chi's green robe and hair. Yanxian glanced at her several times, but her expression was as usual, as if there was no change at all. "Do you think?" The two of them walked side by side in silence for another half of the street before Yanxian finally spoke. "I was the one who asked you to save someone, and you really cured him, so I agreed to work with you?" "I didn't think so," Meng-Chi said. Yanxian. Although he did not speak, he obviously did not believe it. The 10 Extremes mountain would open at any time in these 10 days. Meng-Chi clearly had intentions for the 10 Extremes mountain, and he was also preparing for it. But now he did not hesitate to spend a full 6 hours for a child from an ordinary family. This would not do her any good. What she got from the proprietress was only a handful of first-grade spirit stones. It was probably not even worth the price of one of the spirit herbs Meng-Chi used. Seeing that Meng-Chi did not continue, Yanxian was silent for a long time, and suddenly asked again, "Then why did you save him?" Meng-Chi did not know how to answer this question. "If you don't want me to cooperate with you, why are you willing to save him?" Meng-Chi was stunned. She looked at Yanxian and murmured, "When I see an injured child, of course I will save him if I can," she said. After thinking, Meng-Chi smiled at Yanxian. "You don't have to feel pressured." Chapter 141. Pressure? What pressure? Yanxian was stunned for a moment. Then he quickly reacted. What pressure could he have? "You." He stared at Meng-Chi. It was already late at night. The tavern was located on the outskirts of Moon Mirror City, far less prosperous than the center of the city. The two of them walked all the way from the tavern, and didn't meet anyone on the way. "Are you really not going to make any conditions for me?" Yanxian asked again. "Do you want me to?" Meng-Chi asked him. Yanxian. He felt that this conversation was a little strange, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. Yanxian was silent for a moment, and simply changed the topic. "Aren't you going to ask me something?" Meng-Chi thought for a moment and asked, "Do you want me to ask you something?" Yanxian. Where the hell did this woman come from? Why did he feel that his thoughts were completely different from hers? Not only that, she didn't seem to be curious. Shouldn't a normal person ask him why he appeared here at this time? Why was he still in the Qi refinement realm? Why didn't he return to Moon Mirror Sky but wandered in the city and made friends with these ordinary people? Yanxian had been known as a cultivation genius since he was young. Even in a top sect like Moon Mirror Sky, he was the most outstanding disciple. What's more, his father was the sect master of Moon Mirror Sky. Since he was young, he had been surrounded by many people who wanted to curry favor with him. When he was older, when he was 17 or 18 years old, there were always many female cultivators around him. These, whether it was those who wanted to curry favor with him or the female cultivators who were willing to surround him, they would all treat him as the center. Although Yan Xian wasn't interested in anything other than cultivation, he had long been used to being surrounded by people. Everyone put him first. Later, his expression dimmed. Later, he was seriously injured, and his cultivation returned from the insightful void realm to the qi refinement realm within 2 years. From then on, it was difficult for him to advance. His father was still the sect master of Moon Mirror Sky, the #1 cultivator of the #1 sect in the 3,000 worlds. Those people who surrounded him from the beginning still didn't dare to do anything excessive to him. But some things were still different in the end. Yan Shenbei couldn't tell the world that his son became like this because of the 3,000 worlds. At that time, Yan Xian and a young devil cultivator from the Devil World's invasion had both suffered heavy injuries. Yan Xian was heavily injured while the other party died on the spot. On the demonic cultivator's side, the one who died was the most favored son of a demonic residence's master. The other party had threatened to avenge his son. If Yan Xian was still the Yan Xian of the past, he wouldn't be afraid of such revenge. But he was no longer. His inner core was severely damaged. Not long after he was rescued, his cultivation dropped by 2 major realms. Not only was Yan Shenbei the sect master of Mirror Moon Heaven, he was also Yan Xian's father. At that time, when the devil cultivator wanted to use the enchantment crack to sneak into the 3,000 worlds, it also happened in a remote and desolate place in the Western realm. Otherwise, Yan Xian wouldn't have waited 3 days for reinforcements to arrive, and fought to the point of exhaustion. This matter happened quietly, and very few people knew about it. Yan Shenbei didn't want more people to know. Even in Mirror Moon Heaven, only a few elders, the people who went to save him back then, knew about it. Even Yan Xian's fellow sect disciples didn't know why. Overnight, the genius youth of the sect was unable to recover, and his cultivation grew weaker and weaker. In the end, the disciples in charge of the work in Mirror Moon Heaven all had higher cultivation than him. They wouldn't do anything to the sect master's son. But there were fewer and fewer people around Yan Xian. Those female cultivators who had once admired him also gradually left. Those people who used to surround him like stars surrounding the moon had all become stronger in the past 2 years, and they had all become moons that were held in the sky by more people. Only Yan Xian forever stopped at the bottom of the valley. He wasn't actually hurt or humiliated, and no one would bully him. He knew that as long as his father was still alive, people wouldn't even say a harsh word to him. But probably only people who had experienced it would understand this kind of despair. Only people who had experienced this would understand the misery of falling from the clouds and never being able to climb back up. On the dark street, there was only the sound of Yan Xian and Meng Qi's unhurried footsteps. They had walked a very long path, at least long enough for Yan Xian to have enough time to recall everything that had happened in the past 2 years. He increasingly didn't want to stay in the sect. There were no malicious words, and no one would purposely step on his dignity. However, with every moment he spent there, he could sense that the gap between him and his fellow disciples was growing larger and larger by the second. They still had a future. The great path was in front of them, and they only needed to work hard in cultivation. But he had nothing left. In these 2 years, many medical cultivators famous in the 3,000 worlds had come to treat him. Even the people of the strongest Wind Alliance Shui family in Western Jia shook their heads regretfully, and then left. He still remembered the disappointment and regret on Alliance leader Shui's face when he left. Yan Xian had heard his father mention before that he might marry the daughter of the Wind Alliance leader in the future. But this matter wasn't urgent. It would depend on whether he and the other girl were willing. Of course, after that, no one mentioned this matter again. This wasn't looking down on him. Yan Xian's lips curled up slightly, but there was a bit of bitterness in his smile. Even if the other party was willing, he wouldn't be willing. Thinking of this, he glanced sideways at Meng Qi. The green-robed female medical cultivator didn't say anything and just walked quietly beside him. There was a faint medicinal fragrance on her body. When the night wind blew, this indistinct bitter smell seemed to float even further away, but it didn't make people dislike it at all. You're not going to ask? Yan Xian repeated his words. You're not going to ask why I'm here? The sect I came from is called Cool Breeze Valley. Meng Qi didn't ask him but said, Young sect leader Yan, have you never heard of it? Yan Xian. He had heard of it. Although it was just an insignificant small medical cultivator sect in the 3,000 worlds, this sect had produced Meng Qi. In their medical cultivator assembly, not only did she pass the test, she also received the recognition of the will left in the apricot forest boundary by the ancient great physician Lin Yan. At that time, Lin Yan recognized Meng Qi as a friend in front of so many. It could be said that all the medical cultivators in the world were present. This honor had already destined her to have a bright future. Cool Breeze Valley was known by everyone in the 3,000 worlds immediately. Yan Xian's father was very concerned about this major event that happened in the medical cultivator assembly. Then Cool Breeze Valley is gone. Meng Qi spread his hands. Now I'm a loose cultivator without a sect. Yan Xian. And then? Young sect leader Yan, didn't you ask why I came here, and why I wanted to enter the 10 Extremes Mountain? Meng Qi said slowly, everyone has different circumstances, and different things happen to them. This is everyone's Tao, and there's nothing to be curious about. Yan Xian. This seemed to be the truth, but he still felt it was a bit strange. Yan Xian was silent for a moment, and suddenly said, why did you save him just now? He didn't wait for Meng Qi to answer and quickly added, I want to hear the truth. He said, and you only have one chance. If you lie to me, there's no need to talk about what's going to happen next. I already said it. Meng Qi couldn't help but smile bitterly. An injured child is in front of me. Since I already know, I can't not save him. DDXS. Calm, you can save him after you come out of the 10 Extremes Mountain, can't you? But, Meng Qi sighed softly. I might not be able to come out of the 10 Extremes Mountain, and he might not be able to wait until I come out. She smiled, and her voice was still calm. Boss's child isn't a cultivator to begin with. It's already not easy for him to survive until now after being injured by Devil Qi. He might not even be able to wait until I come out of the 10 Extremes Mountain. Then aren't you worried that this matter will affect your trip to the 10 Extremes Mountain? Maybe if you familiarize yourself with your talismans, and refine a few more pills in these few hours, your chances of success in the 10 Extremes Mountain will be higher. Yan Xian said, he's just a normal person. Meng Qi was even more confused. Weren't you the one who brought me to that tavern? Yan Xian. Young sect master Yan, I don't know what you want to say. Can you just say it? Meng Qi said, since I said I want to cooperate with you, I'm naturally sincere. You can tell me whatever you want to say. You don't have to be like this. This isn't right. Yan Xian didn't know why either. What's wrong? Meng Qi asked. You brought me to that tavern, told the tavern's proprietress that I'm a medical cultivator, and told her to bring me to see her injured son. I cured her son. And now you're saying this isn't right? She was completely dumbfounded. You shouldn't have saved him now, Yan Xian said. Then when should I have saved him? Meng Qi frowned. She looked at Yan Xian's expression, and was stunned for a moment. She roughly understood what Yan Xian meant. Meng Qi smiled and said to Yan Xian, Young sect master Yan, as I said just now, since there's an injured child in front of me, I will definitely save him if I can. She paused. You should understand, don't you? Meng Qi could guess what Yan Xian was feeling awkward about. She actually understood it too. Although the situation was a little different, Yan Xian was injured in order to protect the tracheocosm, and had fallen into such a situation. This matter couldn't be told to everyone in the world. Most people would only know that the genius young sect master of Mirror Moon Heaven had suddenly become mediocre. He was no longer just an ordinary person, but the worst one. There would be all kinds of guesses. Meng Qi understood this kind of feeling a little. She clearly didn't do anything wrong, but in the end, she ended up in a bad situation and was not understood by others. She had experienced a lot in the past. Young sect master Yan. Meng Qi stopped and tilted her head slightly to look at Yan Xian. So let's work together. she said. We will leave the 10 Extremes mountain together, and then everything will be better. Just you and me? Yan Xian also stopped and looked at Meng Qi. Of course not. Meng Qi shook her head. I still have a few friends. Before she finished speaking, she was interrupted by Yan Xian. That's the 10 Extremes mountain. If your friends are there, they might just stab you in the back and take your life. Meng Qi didn't say anything and just looked at Yan Xian with her beautiful eyes. Young sect master Yan. She suddenly reached out and grabbed Yan Xian's wrist. Her fingers were slightly cold and pressed on Yan Xian's wrist. However, the other party seemed to be scalded and suddenly pulled his hand back. Meng Qi didn't force it and said, Your Naiden is damaged. According to what I know, in the next 30 years, including the Yao and Mo realms, there are no more than 3 people who can save you. She paused and then added, and 2 of them, you have to wait until they reach Mahayana before they can use their supreme power to reconstruct your Naiden. Yan Xian stared at Meng Qi for a moment, and then turned his head. He said hoarsely, I know. Shuechuan had said this before. Of the 3, one is the current Yao Lord of the Yao world, and the other is the master of the great Mo residence in the Mo world. The 2 of them are the only Xiuzha who have hopes of reaching Mahayana in 30 years. However, it is hard to say if they are willing to save you, Meng Qi said. I know, Yan Xian said. Even if they really reached Mahayana, why would they reconstruct a little Xiuzha's Naiden? Wasn't that crazy? The 3rd person is me, Meng Qi said and pointed at herself. I don't even need to reach Mahayana. As long as I can come out of the 10 Extremes mountain and reach the spirit-severing stage, I can give it a try. You. Yan Xian looked at Meng Qi in disbelief. He wanted to say that she was crazy. Before he was injured, he was already a Dongxu Xiuzha. Even if Meng Qi reached the spirit-severing stage, there was still a big gap between them. Moreover, if she could do it, why couldn't other medical Xiuzha do it? The Shui family of the Wind Alliance wouldn't lose to, huh? No. The Shui family of the Wind Alliance might really lose to her. After all, this girl inherited the legacy of the great Dr. Lin Yan. If you wait for another 100 or 200 years, maybe more Mahayana Xiuzha will appear. But young sect master Yan, you can't wait. You can only trust me now. Meng Qi said again, how about it? Do you want to take a gamble? A gamble? Yes. Meng Qi nodded. The worst result is that we lose everything, and then we die in the 10 Extremes mountain together. Why does it sound a bit like dying for love? Yan Xian couldn't help but laugh. If it's better, it'll be the same as it is now. Meng Qi also laughed. She looked into Yan Xian's eyes. If you win the gamble, everything will be different. Yan Xian didn't say anything. He just looked into Meng Qi's eyes. How about it? Meng Qi asked again. Do you want to take a gamble? Why do you have to go to the 10 Extremes mountain? Yan Xian asked. This was also a question he had always wanted to ask. You can take it slow. You're destined to have a bright future. Why do you have to go to the 10 Extremes mountain? The opportunities in the 10 Extremes mountain were great, but Yan Xian felt that there was no need for a medical Xiuzha like Meng Qi to go. Because, Meng Qi smiled. I also have something I want to do. It's the same as you. Even if I have to bet my life, I have to do it. Yan Xian was in a daze. He didn't know what Meng Qi meant by something that I have to do even if I have to bet my life. So, Meng Qi stretched out her right hand in front of him. Do you want to work together? Okay. Yan Xian reached out and high-fived her right hand. Then let's go back, Meng Qi said. Ha. Yan Xian raised his eyebrows. Mirror moon sky. Meng Qi quickened her pace. I have to go back and refine pills. I bought a bunch of herbs. If I hurry up and refine one more pill, I might have a higher chance of winning. Weren't you not in a hurry just now? Yan Xian was stunned. He also quickened his pace to catch up with her. As he walked, he asked casually. I'm in a hurry. But no matter how anxious I am, I can't just watch that child die, Meng Qi said. Yan Xian's footsteps paused slightly, but he didn't stop. He walked beside Meng Qi and looked at her thin body. Meng Qi, you be careful. Be careful. The 2 of them reminded each other almost at the same time. Although Yan Xian was only at the Qi disciple stage now, he was still an insightful emptiness stage cultivator. His reaction was still very sharp. He instinctively wanted to protect Meng Qi behind him. However, Meng Qi's movements were faster than his. She took a few steps forward and held a silver medicine knife in her right hand. She took out a magic weapon from her storage bag with her left hand and stared ahead without blinking. There was no one on the quiet street. In front of Meng Qi and the others, a thin and narrow sword was suspended in the air. At first glance, there was nothing special about the sword. However, after looking at it for a while, one would be shocked by the deep cold sword essence that came from the sword. This is... Yan Xian's expression gradually became serious. Meng Qi also recognized it. Sect leader Ling Ji of the Broken Space Sect. Yan Xian looked at Meng Qi in surprise and took a step forward. In the end, he still protected her behind him. You go first, He is a powerful cultivator who is on par with your father. Meng Qi said. If he wants to stop us, none of us can escape. The owner of the long sword seemed to have heard their words. The tip of the sword trembled slightly, as if acknowledging her words. In the next moment, Meng Qi only saw a blur in front of her, and Ling Ji appeared beside the sword. Young friend Meng, we meet again. Ling Ji raised his hand and put away his natal longsword, which was so thin that it was almost transparent. Even so, Ling Ji himself was like the sharpest sword. He did not need to be unsheathed to look down on the world. Sect leader Ling Meng Qi and Yan Xian bowed to Ling Ji. Oh. Ling Ji looked at her with a faint smile. Yan Xian is here too. He looked Yan Xian up and down. His gaze was sharp like a knife. It was not the first time they met, but Yan Xian felt that Ling Ji's gaze on him was unprecedentedly picky. Is your injury better? As expected, Ling Ji quickly asked. The first thing he asked was what Yan Xian did not want to mention. Thank you for your concern, Sect leader Ling, Yan Xian said politely. Ling Ji's actions were faster than his question. Meng Qi felt that he only blinked and Ling Ji was already beside Yan Xian. He put his hand on his wrist and then returned to his original position. He came and went like a ghost. Yan Xian was not prepared for it at all. Even if he was fully alert before he was injured, he probably would not have been able to dodge it. Little friend Meng. Ling Ji looked at Meng Qi. I have something to say to you. Come with me, he said and turned to walk away. Meng Qi and Yan Xian looked at each other and nodded slightly. They quickly followed Ling Ji. It was already late at night, and the night was getting darker. The sky was filled with stars. It was quiet in Mirror Moon Sky City. Ling Ji didn't walk very fast. Meng Qi followed behind him quietly, about an arm's length away from him. Meng Qi followed behind him unhurriedly. The two quickly turned a corner and stopped in an open space. Ling Ji waved his hand. A thin layer of mist spread out from his palm and enveloped the two of them, isolating them from everything around them. With his cultivation, unless an expert like Yan Shenbei came in person, no one would be able to know what they were talking about or doing here. Ling Ji turned to look at Meng Qi. He saw that her face was very calm. He had seen her calmness before. During the day in Mirror Moon Sky, facing him and Yan Shenbei, she was also like this. She did not panic at all. He did not know who she took after. Ling Ji pondered silently. What is your natal magic treasure? He stared at Meng Qi for a moment, and suddenly spoke. But as soon as he spoke, it was a very difficult question to answer. Meng Qi. Don't all medical cultivators like cauldrons and needles? Ling Ji waved his hand. Let me see. Meng Qi. Sect Master Ling. She was very confused. This was the first time they met this sect master of the Broken Space Sect. I'm older than you, so I'm your senior. Call me Uncle Ling. Ling Ji said again. Meng Qi. She looked at Ling Ji in surprise. She was not used to such a friendly person at all. And the other party was the sect master of a large sect like the Broken Space Sect. Was it really okay to be so casual? Come. Ling Ji lowered his voice to make his tone sound gentler. Let me see your natal magic treasure. There's no need, right? Meng Qi thought for a moment and still refused. The 10 Extremes Mountain is very dangerous, Ling Ji said. Not many people who go in can come out in one piece. And this time, The 10 Extremes Mountain opens once every 100 years. It's even more dangerous. As Ling Ji spoke, he touched his chin. He was a sword cultivator. His attainments in sword techniques were very high. There were almost no opponents in the world. And he was the sect master of the Broken Space Sect. According to his identity, he was one of the people who stood at the peak of the 3,000 worlds. In front of Yin Shunbei during the day, Ling Ji indeed had the bearing of a great grandmaster. But now he looked a little lazy. After touching his chin, he put his hands in front of him back into his sleeves. He just stood there casually and looked at Meng Qi. He looked at the silver medicine knife in Meng Qi's hand that he had not put away. You use a knife? Oh. Meng Qi looked down at his weapon and nodded. Let me see. Ling Ji said again. How's your knife technique? Meng Qi. I'm a medical cultivator. She felt more and more confused. She also knew that her knife technique was definitely not good enough in the eyes of a sword expert like Ling Ji. It's okay, Ling Ji said. I won't laugh at you. Meng Qi. She looked at Ling Ji. Although she could not feel any malice or hostility from him, the scene in front of her was really too strange. Don't worry, Ling Ji wanted to continue. Do you know why I want to snatch the sect master of the Broken Space Sect? Meng Qi shook her head. Because this way, I can choose the disciples who will enter the 10 Extremes Mountain this year. As Ling Ji spoke, he touched his chin again and said to Meng Qi, Qiao Ran, who you saw today, will be one of them. Is that so? Meng Qi did not know what to say. This conversation was getting weirder and weirder. Qiao Ran's talent in sword techniques is not bad, but he's still young. He can't make up for his weakness in time. Come, let me tell you, you only need to. Sect Master Ling. Meng Qi did not know whether to laugh or cry. Is this really okay? She felt more and more confused. What was the Broken Space Sect trying to do? Could it be that they were just like Ji Wujiang, looking for her so that she could enter the Broken Space Sect? Meng Qi felt that this idea was a bit funny. Forget about Ji Wujiang. They had fought side by side before, so there was some bond between them. This Ling Ji probably did not know how bad her talent in cultivation was. Although she had learned the silver moon sword diagram that Xue Qingxian taught her, she had also practiced it. However, every time Ji Wujiang saw her practicing it, his face was full of disdain. He did not even plan to hide it. Oh, Ling Ji nodded and said, That's true. I should explain it clearly. He paused. Suddenly, with a flick of his finger, his natal sword appeared beside Meng Qi's hand. Meng Qi looked at the sword in confusion. She looked up at Ling Ji even more confusedly. Come. Ling Ji flicked his finger, and a sword appeared beside his hand. Use this and learn a set of sword techniques from me. He said, Don't worry. You will understand once you practice it with me. Really? Ling Ji looked at Meng Qi. She could not hide the eagerness in her eyes. Your talent is definitely not in medical skills. He said seriously. You should be an outstanding sword cultivator who will amaze the world. Ling Ji said, Trust me. Chapter 142. Half an hour later, Ling Ji stared at Meng Qi in a daze, completely at a loss. Meng Qi released her hand and let the thin longsword float next to her. Her expression was calm and composed. At the very least, she would not be affected by something like this. Everyone's talent was different, and she was not a sword xiao. How is it? Meng Qi tilted her head slightly. She could still joke with Ling Ji. Does my talent in swordsmanship amaze you? And cough cough. When Ling Ji had faced off against Yin Shunbei in Mirror Moon Heaven, she had had the presence of a true grandmaster. Now, she was clearly much more relaxed. You still hold the sword very firmly. He said, Your memory is not bad. You memorized the sword moves after being taught once. It was just that she could not use them. And, he thought and then said seriously, The key is that your attitude is very good. You are calm and composed. Xiozha need this kind of attitude to have a bright future. Meng Qi couldn't help but smile. Sect Master Ling has worked hard. Everyone liked to hear compliments, and she was no exception. Truthfully, when Ji Wujiang had looked at her with undisguised amazement in the apricot forest boundary, and insisted on taking her as a disciple. She had been slightly happy. Now a powerful person like Ling Ji was trying to find good points to praise her. It was hard to be angry at him. However, it was one thing to like to hear praise. It was more important to know one's own strengths and weaknesses. "You are welcome," Ling Ji murmured. He stared at Mengqi. She couldn't be considered a stunning beauty, but she had an elegant face and a calm demeanor. She made people feel very comfortable. "Sect Master Ling, if there is nothing else, I will leave." Mengqi bowed to Ling Ji and turned to walk back the way she had come. "Wait." Ling Ji hurriedly stopped her. Just now he had said shamelessly that Mengqi would soon know what her talent was, and why he had found her. The development of the matter was completely different from what he had imagined. Ling Ji was slightly conflicted. Mengqi stopped and turned around, looking at Ling Ji curiously. "You?" Ling Ji pondered for a moment. "Aren't you curious about why I came to you?" "Oh." Mengqi felt a little helpless. Why did the two people he met today like to talk in this way? Why did they have to take the initiative to ask them? "A little," she said honestly. "The Broken Space Sect was also looking for me, but I believe that since Sect Master Ling agreed to the bet with Sect Master Yan, he would not make a move on me before I enter the 10 Extremes Mountain." "Of course," Ling Ji said quickly. After a moment of silence he continued. "I wasn't originally the Sect Master of the Broken Void Sect. I only became the Sect Master recently." Mengqi. She didn't answer and just looked at Ling Ji quietly. "In the past." Ling Ji paused. After a moment of silence she continued. "I felt that being a free itinerant cultivator was quite good." He slowly clenched his hands that were hanging by his side. When he met Mengqi's clear eyes he suddenly sighed softly. "Fine." Ling Ji waved his hand. "Everything can wait until you come out of the 10 Extremes Mountain." He glanced at Mengqi again. "I'll leave first." Mengqi felt confused. She watched as Ling Ji really turned and left. The thin layer of mist dissipated. She stood in place for a moment, until Ling Ji's figure completely disappeared into the night. Then, she turned and walked back the way she came. Yan Xian was still waiting in place. When he saw Mengqi return he didn't find it strange. The two continued to walk towards the Mirror Moon Sky Resort. After a few steps, Yan Xian suddenly asked, "Why did he look for you?" "To see if I have a talent for swordsmanship," Mengqi murmured. "Do you?" Yan Xian asked. "No." Mengqi shook her head. "Hey." Yan Xian suddenly spoke. "Did you notice that you look a bit like him?" "Huh?" Mengqi was stunned. "Your eyebrows and eyes are really similar to his." Yan Xian frowned slightly and recalled seriously. "Your nose is also similar." Mengqi. "It can't be, is it that dramatic?" Mengqi recalled seriously. Her adoptive mother was a widowed woman in the Cool Breeze Valley. Although they lived in poverty, her adoptive mother was a very capable and hardworking person. Although their home wasn't big, everything was very warm. When Mengqi was young, she always thought that her adoptive mother was her mother because she was really good to her and gave her meticulous and warm love. But when she was 10 years old, her adoptive mother fell seriously ill. Before she died, she told her that she found Mengqi in the forest in the Cool Breeze Valley. The small package she found had a small qi embroidered on it. Her adoptive mother's surname was Mengqi, so she was called Mengqi. Her adoptive mother endured her illness, and even took Mengqi to see the place where she found her. It was under a cliff, and there was nothing special about it. The forest was deep, and very few people went there. Her adoptive mother went there to pick some medicinal herbs and exchange them for pills in the Cool Breeze Valley. Many residents of the Cool Breeze town would do this. They would pick some medicinal herbs that they could and then exchange them for pills to treat headaches, fever, or external injuries in the Cool Breeze Valley. If her adoptive mother hadn't happened to pass by, Mengqi, who was still a baby, might have died quietly in the forest. Later, Mengqi passed a test and officially became a disciple of the Cool Breeze Valley, becoming an ordinary medical practitioner. In the sect, there was the talented senior sister Lu Qingran, as well as some senior brothers and sisters whose parents were ordinary practitioners. Mengqi never thought of looking for her parents. She felt that since they threw her there, it meant that they didn't want her anymore. In her previous life, until her death, Mengqi didn't know who her parents were. She would never even mention it to anyone. Oh, Mengqi thought about it. It wasn't like she had never mentioned it to anyone. She once told Yan Qingyan. At that time, they had been traveling together for a long time. Sometimes, Mengqi would cook a few dishes at night, and Yan Qingyan would also drink a few cups. Mengqi couldn't remember clearly. She was never a good drinker. Once, she drank a few cups with Yan Qingyan. Her head was groggy, and she seemed to have become more talkative. Then, she mentioned her biological parents, whom she had never met. Mengqi couldn't remember what they said after that. She collected her drifting thoughts and quickly calmed down. It couldn't be that dramatic, right? Mengqi thought it was a little funny, but if that was the case, Ling Ji's strange attitude probably made sense. What are you thinking about? She didn't speak for a long time, and Yan Xian couldn't help but ask. Nothing. Mengqi was very calm. I don't think so. She shrugged and smiled slyly. My cultivation talent is very poor, and my swordsmanship talent is even more. Mengqi thought about it and could only describe it. It's too horrible to look at. She said, I shocked sect leader Ling just now. He was so scared that he turned around and left. Yan Xian. What we should think about now is the Shijua mountain. Mengqi said again. Don't let these irrelevant things distract us. Yan Xian. Was this an insignificant matter? If Mengqi was really Lingji's daughter, then she was the daughter of the sect leader of the Broken Void sect. She was the eldest daughter of one of the strongest sword cultivation sects in the world. Her life would be completely different from then on. Yan Xian thought about it and said, do you know what kind of person Lingji is? He didn't wait for Mengqi to answer and said directly. Even in the West world, he is a legend. Yan Xian quickly recalled and said, let's put it this way. Almost all the sword cultivators of the younger generation in the Four Realms grew up listening to the legends of Lingji. He is a sword cultivator who is more talented and more powerful than anyone in the world. Yan Xian said, when he was 20, he had already stepped into the Dongshu stage. His life-bound sword was even more powerful. In the years when Lingji swept through the 3,000 worlds, many people were scared out of their wits just by hearing the two words Lingji. Among the various legends about him in the West world, the most widely spread story was when he stepped into the Dongshu stage. He went straight into the Starfall Sea with his sword. He killed demons when he met them. He killed so many demons that we thought the Starfall Sea was like purgatory. The demons were all scared, but he entered as if there was no one there. That time when he left the Starfall Sea, he brought out many jade slips that had been lost for a long time. He even brought out the corpse of a senior, who had died in the Starfall Sea many years ago. That senior also came from a large sect. His only daughter came personally, and was willing to be a slave to repay his kindness. But Senior Lingji refused. Yan Xian said, even now he still doesn't have a Dao companion. As he spoke, he turned to look at Mengqi, and said, the Broken Space sect originally relied on sword formations to dominate the four worlds. Senior Lingji's sword alone was even more powerful than the sword formation. And it is said that he is the only person in their sect who has learned the strongest sword technique. Oh. Mengqi nodded. Alright. Yan Xian remembered. We once joined forces with the Yao world to attack the Mo world. That was already more than 20 years ago. At that time, the 10 great sects of the 3,000 worlds and 4 worlds all sent out cultivators to form an alliance. The leader was Senior Lingji. Mengqi nodded. But after that time, he went silent. Father said that when a cultivator reaches a certain level, they will be like this. They will no longer be trapped by worldly affairs, and will wholeheartedly walk towards the great Tao. Yan Xian continued. So this time he became the new sect master of the Broken Space sect. Even my father felt a bit surprised. After he finished speaking, he looked at Mengqi. Mirror Moon Sky Resort is up ahead. You can go back. You are not coming with me? Mengqi asked. I am in the city. If you want to find me, go to that restaurant. Before 10 Extremes Mountain opens, I will go there every evening. Yan Xian said after a slight hesitation. All right. Mengqi nodded. She had been out for almost a day. At this time, The sky was starting to turn white, and Mirror Moon Sky City was gradually waking up. Mengqi. Yin Xian stood with her on a street at the corner of Mirror Moon Sky Resort. He looked at Mengqi's eyes and suddenly asked, "One last question. Why did you ask me to cooperate?" He asked. He did not let Mengqi speak and said first, "Other than the fact that I am the son of the sect master of Mirror Moon Sky Sect." "Oh," Mengqi thought and said, "Your Niden is almost completely destroyed. I want to see if it can be healed. This is my personal interest." She looked at Yin Xian and felt a little embarrassed. She asked, "Do you know Senior Lin Yan?" "I do." Yin Xian nodded. Lin Yan was an ancient great doctor. Even if she was not a medical cultivator, her deeds were known by many people. "I wish I could have been born 10,000 years earlier, so that I could fight side by side with Senior Lin Yan." Mengqi smiled. "Or I could have done my best to heal her after she was injured," she said. "This is probably the dream of every medical cultivator." "So," she patted Yin Xian's shoulder and said, "Young man, I'm sorry, you are probably Senior Lin Yan's substitute." After Mengqi finished speaking, she strode towards Mirror Moon Sky Resort. Yin Xian still stood in the same place. He stared at Mengqi's back in a daze. After a while, he also strode towards the resort. The disciples of Mirror Moon Sky were still so respectful and polite to him. But after he was injured, he always felt that this politeness contained some sympathy or other emotions. At this time, Yin Xian did not think so much. He quickly returned to Mirror Moon Sky Sect through the teleportation formation in the resort. "Father." Yin Xian quickly arrived at his father's place. He knocked on the door and entered after getting permission. "You're back." Yin Shumbei lived on a cliff in Mirror Moon Sky. There was a house on the cliff. In addition, there was a pine tree with a stone table and a stone bench under the tree. Yin Shumbei sat there. There was a chessboard on the stone table. There were already many black and white chess pieces on it. He heard his son's footsteps approaching but did not look up. He still placed the chess pieces step by step, as if nothing was more important than the game in front of him. Yin Xian sat down opposite him. "I saw Mengqi." "Oh." Yin Shumbei put down the white chess piece in his hand and looked up at him. "How was it?" Yin Xian picked up a black chess piece and placed it on the chessboard. "It's quite special." Yin Shumbei did not speak. After a moment of silence, he put down another white chess piece. Yin Xian played quickly and put down another black chess piece almost without thinking. After a dozen or so moves, the white chess piece showed clear signs of defeat. Yin Shumbei frowned and messed up the chessboard with a flick of his sleeve. "You're always making trouble." Yin Xian smiled and did not say anything. He threw the remaining black chess pieces in his hand into a box on the side and said, "Father, you also saw the last image of the apricot forest boundary that day. I feel that Mengqi is trustworthy." "What happened yesterday?" Yin Shumbei asked. "She spent 6 hours to heal an ordinary citizen in the city who was injured by demon energy. She said that if she saw an injured child, she would heal if she could. Are you not worried that she is acting for you?" Yin Shumbei asked. "What does she want from me?" Yin Xian's tone became bitter. "I am now a Qi disciple. I will only be a burden to anyone." He quickly became spirited and said, "After entering 10 Extremes Mountain, we will not know anything that happens. She has no need to spend the effort to lie to me now. 10 Extremes Mountain is in Mirror Moon Heaven." Yin Shumbei said slowly, "Although everyone says that no one knows what will happen in 10 Extremes Mountain, we also do not know. But 10 Extremes Mountain is in Mirror Moon Heaven." He looked at his son. After so many years, there are many disciples of Mirror Moon Heaven who can enter 10 Extremes Mountain and come out alive. "Father." Yin Xian looked at his father and saw the worry in his eyes. "I know all this, but I am willing to believe her. We can try to believe her once." "All right." Yin Shumbei stood up. He slowly walked to the edge of the cliff and looked into the distance. "In these 2 years, you were not willing to come back. I know you still blame me." Yin Shumbei stood with his hands behind his back and sighed lightly. "If we could have arrived a day earlier, your injuries would not have." "Father." Yin Xian interrupted him. "Let's not mention the past." He stood up. Even if I had to do it again, I would still make the same choice. Father is the same, no? Yin Xian said. If I were father, I would probably make the same choice as you. I always remember what father said. Cultivating the great Tao. The path is long and difficult, but if you have a clear conscience, then your Tao heart will be firm enough. Your son has always remembered and has always done this. After Yin Xian finished speaking, he bowed towards Yin Shunbei, who had his back facing him, and left with large strides. Yin Shunbei did not turn around. He still stood with his hands behind his back at the edge of the cliff. The mountain wind blew his long robe. The skin on his face was originally very smooth, but now it seemed to have many wrinkles blown out by the mountain wind. Hearing his son's footsteps gradually fade away, Yin Shunbei sighed again. What are you doing? Until Ling Ji's voice sounded behind him. Yin Shunbei turned to look at the uninvited sect master of Broken Space Sect, and said expressionlessly, What are you doing here? The one who just left was Yin Xian, right? Ling Ji looked back. Is this child still at odds with you? Yin Shunbei did not speak. That's true. Ling Ji smiled. If I was in deep danger, my father, for the sect, for the 3,000 worlds, let me hold on for 3 days and 3 nights by myself. In the end, my inner core was destroyed and I turned from an insightful emptiness realm cultivator to what I am now. I wouldn't feel good either. Yin Shunbei. You. He took a deep breath and made his tone sound calmer. You know what kind of situation it was at that time. I know. Ling Ji said. But if it was my daughter, even if I betrayed the world, I would put everything down and rush over immediately. Yin Shunbei snorted coldly. So the person your daughter worships is the senior doctor, who is willing to sacrifice himself for the 3,000 worlds. Alright, let's talk about the 10 Extremes Mountain first. Ling Ji's face turned green for a while. She quickly changed the topic. Tell me everything you know. I only know this much. What's going on with the 10 Extremes Mountain, don't you know? Yin Shunbei said. The 10 Extremes Mountain has been in your mirror moon sky for 10,000 years. Have you not secretly studied it? That can't be right. Ling Ji said. How did you become the sect master? If this was my Broken Space Sect, I would have studied every single blade of grass. This is a branch of the ancient 10 Extremes Mountain. Yin Shunbei said. So, other than contributing a Qi disciple stage sun, your mirror moon sky has nothing else? Ling Ji was so angry that she wanted to laugh. Yin Shunbei. Sigh. Ling Ji suddenly sighed. To be honest, Yin Xian is not bad. I think Chi-Chi and him get along quite well. This was the first time he called out Chi-Chi, and it was in front of his old friend and rival. In that instant, he felt comfortable all over. You know, right? Wind Alliance's Shui family also wants Chi-Chi to marry into their family. Ling Ji continued. Shui family Shui Qingxian and Chi-Chi can be said to be like-minded, barely worthy of Chi-Chi. I think that kid at Cloud Peak is the same, chasing Chi-Chi from south to north, from east to west. Cloud Peak dual cultivator, that kid's talent is not bad. Ling Ji continued. Is there any use in saying this now? Yin Shunbei stared at him. What else? Ling Ji snorted. Are you not worried about your son at all? Yin Shunbei closed his eyes, then closed them again. The Demon Realm's Demon Lord token has reappeared, he said slowly. I know. Ling Ji's expression froze, and she became serious. The Demon Lord token appears once every 100 years, and every time, it is when the 10 Extremes Mountain opens. It is said that there are 3 branches of the ancient 10 Extremes Mountain. 3,000 worlds, the Demon Realm and the Demon Realm each occupy one. So, Ling Ji frowned. You suspect that these 3 10 Extremes Mountains are connected? I don't know if they are connected, but no one has ever said how the Demon Lord position is fought for. So, Yin Shunbei said. It is not impossible. Ling Ji's expression also became extremely solemn. And if the Demon Realm also has a branch of the 10 Extremes Mountain, it should be the strongest one. Yin Shunbei continued, Realm 8 demon cultivators can also enter, and even Realm 9 is possible. What about the Demon Realm? Ling Ji's gaze finally became sharp. The Demon Realm should be the weakest. There is no need to worry. We have always been on good terms with the demon realm. Ling Ji suddenly paused. The heavenly demon White Tiger clan had ruled the demon realm for 10,000 years. They were very friendly to the 3,000 worlds. However, the fight for the demon lord position always ended with the death of several extremely powerful heavenly demon royal clan members. Even if they could not see it, they could imagine the tragedy. If that was the case, the danger of the 10 Extremes Mountain this time might be, we can't let Mengqi go. Ling Ji suddenly turned around. She asked to enter the 10 Extremes Mountain herself, Yin Shunbei said. But Ling Ji frowned. And she will definitely go this time, Yin Shunbei said indifferently. The black-robed youth who came with her is from the Ji family. He must have already told young friend Meng about this. He looked at Ling Ji and suddenly smiled. You were counting back and forth proudly just now, but you seem to have missed 2 people. One is this Ji Wujiong that I mentioned. Young friend Meng has the Ji family's patriarch token on her. He should be the one who gave it to her. You should know what this means. There is another one. Yin Shunbei sighed. I'm afraid this time, she will participate in the Demon Lord battle. Her background is a little scary. This time, it was Ling Ji's turn. What? In the room, Meng Qi jumped up. Are you serious? She looked at Ji Wujiong in disbelief and muttered, You mean? Yes. Ji Wujiong nodded and said in a serious tone, I have asked my family's elders to investigate these few days. The minor 10 Extremes Mountain in Mirror Moon Heaven should be connected to the demon realm. The Demon Lord token has reappeared in the demon realm, and the battlefield for the fight is probably also in the 10 Extremes Mountain. He sighed. The danger of the 10 Extremes Mountain this time is probably beyond our imagination. Why don't you not go this time? We will think of another way. Chapter 143. I'm going. Mengqi quickly calmed down and sat down again. Her tone was light but firm. As she spoke, she was fiddling with the 5-spirit cauldron. A few Xian spirit stones under the cauldron emitted a faint blue light. The medicinal liquid in the cauldron was churning, and Mengqi was still constantly throwing medicinal herbs into it. Soon, the medicinal liquid in the 5-spirit cauldron became richer and richer. She took a deep breath, took out a small bright red fruit, and finally put it in. With a muffled bang, a red light flashed in Mengqi's small natal pill cauldron. All the medicinal liquid disappeared, leaving only a dark red, round pill the size of a thumb floating in the cauldron. She reached out and took the pill to look at it carefully. This time, she nodded with satisfaction and took out a smooth white porcelain bottle to store the pill. It smells weird. Ji Wujiong had been staring at Mengqi's movements. At this time he sniffed. Even he had a look of disbelief on his face. Is this the Nirvana pill? Yes. Mengqi nodded. The other medicinal herbs for refining the Nirvana pill were easy to find, but the most difficult one was the main ingredient. Among the medical cultivators in the Trichiliocosm, there were many medical cultivators who knew how to refine the Nirvana pill, but the phoenix fruit was difficult to find. Mengqi bought a lot of medicinal herbs in the sky beyond heaven this time. If she had enough time, she could refine all these phoenix fruits into Nirvana pills. Oh. Ji Wujiong watched Mengqi repeat her actions just now. The small bright red fruit was held in her white and slender fingers. It was actually quite ordinary and inconspicuous. Could it be that he was speechless for a while? Where did Mengqi find the phoenix fruit? A cold light suddenly flashed in his eyes, and he reacted. Starfall Sea? Ji Wujiong lowered his eyelids and covered the light in his eyes. He was silent for a moment. Seeing that Mengqi had refined another Nirvana pill, he said slowly, The Nirvana pill is not useful for you. I know. Mengqi said lightly. Ji Wujiong, didn't you say you bought some magic weapons? Let me have a look. He completely stopped trying to persuade Mengqi not to go to the 10 Extremes Mountain. It was as if what he said just now was just to tell her what he knew. After all, he was Mengqi's master, and he was just trying to persuade her. Mengqi obeyed and took out the pile of 6th-tier magical equipment he had bought, placing them on the table in front of Ji Wujiong. Let me have a look. Ji Wujiong picked up a palm-sized jade pendant-shaped magic weapon, and casually glanced at it. TSK. I can only say that this jade is a good piece of jade. If it was made into an ordinary jade, it would be able to ward off evil spirits. Heavenly Sea Pavilion had made such a toy. What was the difference between it and an ordinary jade pendant? What a waste. Meng-Chi glanced at the magic weapon. She remembered that it was called the Origin Returning Pendant. It was carved from a piece of rare evil-warding jade. Wearing that jade on one's body could indeed expel ordinary poisonous insects and miasma. That was why it was named Exorcism. After Heavenly Sea Pavilion made it into the Origin Returning Pendant, they attached a wild sand spell to it, which could summon a wild sand to protect the owner. Meng-Chi felt that it was quite practical. Tisk tsk tsk. Ji Wujiang picked up another magic weapon. Didn't they say that Heavenly Sea Pavilion had obtained an ancient inheritance, and their refining skills had improved by leaps and bounds in the past few hundred years? Is this the result of their rapid improvement? Then were the pots and pans they refined in the past all for ordinary people? Meng-Chi did not even bother to look at what he was holding in his hand this time. In any case, in Ji Wujiang's eyes, there was probably nothing in this world that could catch his eye except for himself. She looked at the 5-spirit cauldron in front of her attentively, constantly repeating her previous actions. Soon Ji Wujiang had finished looking at the 9 6th-tier magical equipment. He threw the last one on the table, and his gaze turned back to Meng-Chi's face. The green-robed woman's expression looked so serious. She did the same thing meticulously, and there was no hint of impatience at all. She refined the nirvana pills one by one. Her expression was always calm, and she kept them in a porcelain bottle one by one. Ji Wujiang quietly looked at Meng-Chi doing this. The spirit stone under the 5-spirit cauldron flickered, outlining a flickering light on her face. It also made his own expression seem to change unpredictably along with the flickering light of the spirit stone. In the 10 Extremes Mountain, there is an ancient inheritance. Ji Wujiang suddenly opened his mouth and said slowly, Meng-Chi began to throw medicinal herbs into the 5-spirit cauldron again, and looked at him. What? Ji Wujiang stood up and paced back and forth in the room. As if he had made up his mind, he stood in front of Meng-Chi. Although no one knows what will happen in the 10 Extremes Mountain, there is an ancient inheritance in the mountain. He took a deep breath. Maybe it's the reward for reaching the peak, or the gains in the mountain. But in the past, when the 10 Extremes Mountain opened, the Xiuzha that were able to come out alive always had great gains. Meng-Chi nodded and said, I know. Ji Wujiang took out an inky jade bamboo scroll from his storage brocade bag. This is the formation jade scroll passed down in my Ji family. I will pass it to you now. Meng-Chi looked dazedly at Ji Wujiang. Her hand felt cold. Ji Wujiang's icy cold hand had already grabbed onto her hand. The slightly cold inky jade scroll was stuffed into her hand. The other held her fingers and let her hold Meng-Chi firmly in her palm. Meng-Chi, I will leave Mirror Moon Sky tomorrow and go home, he said. Come out alive. Okay. Meng-Chi's hand that held the inky jade scroll slowly tightened, and held the jade scroll even tighter. I will. She smiled at Ji Wujiang. I will definitely leave there alive, and will also successfully reach the peak. When I come out, I will definitely be a spirit-severing stage Xiuzha. Ji Wujiang opened his mouth, but in the end he still did not say anything. He suddenly spread his arms and hugged Meng-Chi tightly. Then he quickly let go of her. I'm leaving. After the black-robed man finished speaking, he turned and walked towards the door with large strides. He did not turn back to look at Meng-Chi again. Ji Wujiang's amethyst 8 trigrams plate quietly floated beside him at some unknown time. His talisman originally had its own intelligence. Its round body swayed in the air, as if it was bidding farewell to Meng-Chi. The door to the room opened, and then closed. The sound of Ji Wujiang's footsteps gradually faded away, and finally disappeared. Meng-Chi sat down again. She opened her palm, and a small inky jade scroll lay obediently in her fair palm. She could feel an ancient aura coming from the jade scroll, without injecting spiritual energy. She sat quietly for a moment, and then injected a wisp of spiritual energy into the jade scroll. Almost all the arrays of the Ji family were recorded inside. Some of them Meng Qi had seen Ji Wujiang use before, and some she had never seen before. At the end, it was the array that could summon the phoenix that Ji Wujiang had used in the apricot forest enchantment. However, there was a cloud floating above the array, covering part of the key areas. Meng Qi could not learn it. Learning arrays was as natural for her as eating and drinking. After reading it once, she had already memorized most of the arrays in her heart. Meng Qi was stunned for a moment, and then she put the inky jade scroll into her storage brocade bag. She looked at the 5-spirit cauldron in front of her, and continued to refine pills. Meng Qi stayed in the room for 7 days and 7 nights. Probably because of Yan Xuanbei's instructions, no one came to disturb her during this time, so she could focus on refining pills for a full 7 days. In addition to the Nirvana pill, she also prepared some pills commonly used by cultivators. With the help of the 5-spirit cauldron, Meng Qi's efficiency of refining pills was much higher than before. Now she refined pills in 7 days, but in the past it would take at least 2 months. During this period, her level of medical skills had improved, and she had completely reached the peak of the 4th grade. She only needed an opportunity to enter the 5th realm. Meng Qi did not insist. She put away the 5-spirit cauldron, stood up, and stretched her body. She had been in the room for 7 days and 7 nights. Shijue Mountain was not open yet, and it would be in the next 1 or 2 days. She opened the door, and the sunlight shone in. It was so bright that she subconsciously squinted her eyes. Oh, when Meng Qi adapted to the sunlight and opened her eyes again, she found that there were already several people in the courtyard. Meng Qi. Si Gongxing was the first to jump up. She almost threw herself at Meng Qi and hugged her in her arms. You're finally out. Behind her, Su Junmo's face was full of helplessness. He met Meng Qi's gaze, shook his head heavily and said, "It's hard for this girl to endure and not disturb you." TSXSW. La beside him, the Scarlet Fox youth who suddenly appeared in the Starfall Sea and gave Meng Qi a big bag of Xian spirit stones, Si Kongzhan, looked at Meng Qi, and then at Si Gongxing. He snorted softly, turned his head, and said nothing. In addition, on the stone benches in the courtyard, Chu Tianfeng, Qin Xiuma, and Li Che were sitting together. At this time they all looked up at Meng Qi, their eyes full of concern. "When did you come?" Meng Qi murmured. "Yesterday morning." Chu Tianfeng said wrong. "My father told me that Shijue Mountain would definitely open in 3 days, and told me to come to Jinghua Sky so that I wouldn't miss the opening of Shijue Mountain." Oh. Meng Qi nodded. Chu Tianfeng would also go to Shijue Mountain. She had guessed this. Burning Sky Palace was one of the 10 great sects in the eastern border, and had the qualifications to enter Shijue Mountain. Her gaze turned to Qin Xiuma's face. Ever since he said that in the Starfall Sea, the two of them had not had a chance to talk alone. Meng Qi wanted to ask, but felt that there was nothing to ask. Her gaze swept past Qin Xiuma, and then looked at Li Che. Li Che was also going to Shijue Mountain, wasn't he? Her companions, except for Si Gongxing and the others, were probably all going to Shijue Mountain. The friends she had mentioned to Yan Xian earlier were Chu Tianfeng and the others. They had once fought side by side in the Starfall Sea. At the very least, they were trustworthy. Meng Qi's spirit was lifted. She was not a person with many friends in the past, and she was used to traveling alone. But now this feeling was not bad. Meng Qi's lips curled up slightly, and she patted Si Gongxing's shoulder. "Xingxing, okay. Let's talk first." "Okay." Si Gongxing then separated from her. She immediately flicked her fingers, and her cute primordial spirit was summoned. During this period of time, Si Gongxing and the others had been cultivating in a secret place not far from Mirror Moon Sky City. Everyone's cultivation had improved, and her primordial spirit had also become more intelligent. Compared to the last time Meng Qi saw it, it was a little less ignorant. The little red fox looked at Meng Qi, and its big black and round eyes rolled around. The primordial spirit and its master's mind were connected. Si Gongxing and Meng Qi were good friends, and the little red fox also liked her. Before Meng Qi could take the initiative to reach out to it, The little red fox had already jumped from Xing's palm into Mengqi's arms. It even rubbed its little head against her hand obediently. Although it was only a primordial spirit, not only did it look cute, but it also felt similar to a real red fox. Mengqi could not help but laugh out loud. She reached out and rubbed the little fox's sharp little ears. The little fox immediately cooperated and raised its head. It even squinted its eyes in satisfaction, looking like it was enjoying it very much. Mengqi giggled. She turned to Xing and asked, "Does it eat?" "It's fine if it has spirit qi," Xing said. "Oh." Mengqi took out a small purple fruit from her storage brocade pouch. It was one of the spirit medicines she had bought in the sky beyond heaven this time. It was a relatively common fruit in the cultivation world. The little fox immediately reached out its little paws to hug the purple fruit, and ate it obediently. "So cute." Mengqi rubbed the little fox's head again, and sighed with satisfaction. "If only I were a demon cultivator. Then she would also have such an obedient primordial spirit." Su Junmo and the others had strange expressions on their faces when they heard this. She wanted to be a demon cultivator just because of her primordial spirit? Male cultivators like them would probably never be able to understand the thoughts of female cultivators in this aspect. They did not rush her. After Mengqi and the little fox played for a while, Su Junmo said, "Mengqi, do you want to go to the 10 Extremes Mountain?" "Yes." Mengqi nodded. Su Junmo looked at Qin Xioma. He was not surprised by this answer. "We demon cultivators can't enter the 10 Extremes Mountain, but," he turned to Xing and said, "Xing can." "I object." Before he finished speaking, Xing interrupted. "Xing can't go. The 10 Extremes Mountain is too dangerous." Mengqi was startled. She suddenly remembered that Xing said that her mother was a cultivator from the 3,000 worlds, so half of her blood was human. "It's none of your business." As soon as Xing finished speaking, Xing had already jumped up and looked at him fiercely. "Xing, I've tolerated you for a long time. Even if according to the seniority of the clan, I should call you clan brother, but, humph." She snorted a few times. Although she did not finish speaking, the meaning behind her words was very clear. Xing could not control her. "I want to go," Xing said decisively. "Xing?" Mengqi frowned. "Don't go. The 10 Extremes Mountain this time is more dangerous than before. If you go, I'm afraid." "I want to go," Xing insisted. Su Junmo also said that for me this time, although it's a bit dangerous, it's also an opportunity. Besides, she turned to look at Su Junmo and continued, "We've already discussed it. The current 10 Extremes Mountain will not be more dangerous than it was in the ancient times. The real danger is actually the human heart." As Xing spoke, she smiled and held Mengqi's arm. She continued, "But we're together. I'm not afraid." Xing is right. Su Junmo nodded. "If she doesn't go this time, she'll have to wait 10 years. 10 years, it'll be very difficult to have such an opportunity again." He paused and said, "Besides, if you all go together, it's the most suitable." As Su Junmo spoke, he looked around and his gaze swept across the faces of Chu Tianfeng and the others. Brother Qin is a Dharma cultivator and a dual cultivator of swordsmanship. Xing's defense is the best. "Mengqi, you and Brother Li are medical cultivators plus," he muttered. "If I'm not wrong, Pei Mufeng will also participate. With all of you together, even if there's any danger in the 10 Extremes Mountain, I think you'll be able to deal with it." As Su Junmo spoke, he took out an item from his storage bag and handed it to Mengqi. "This is for you all. It just so happens that you'll be able to use it this time." "What's this?" Mengqi looked at the item in his hand. It was a small black disc. The Big Dipper was drawn on it. The disc did not look big, but it was heavy in his hand. "This is the Big Dipper plate," Su Junmo said. "Leave your consciousness on this Big Dipper plate, and you'll be able to sense each other's position and condition." Mengqi nodded and kept the Big Dipper plate. "No matter what, if you must go, it'll be safer for all of you to go together," Su Junmo said. "Besides, Xing shouldn't miss such a rare opportunity." That's right," Xing also said. It's rare that the 10 Extremes Mountain is open this time, and Sect Master Yen allowed me to enter. Ming-Chi, why don't we go together? But Ming-Chi frowned slightly. She remembered Ji Wujiang's words. If the 10 Extremes Mountain here was really connected to the demon realm, wouldn't it be more dangerous for Xing? No buts. Xing hugged her arm. Let's vote. Vote. Ming-Chi couldn't help but laugh. You can do that. That's right, that's right. Xing said as he raised his right hand. I agree. As he said that, he looked at Chu Tianfeng and the others. What about you guys? Chu Tianfeng raised his right hand, and his voice was a little low. I agree. After he finished speaking, he quickly glanced at Ming-Chi. Before he could meet her gaze, he quickly turned his head away. His gaze was somewhat evasive, as if he had something on his mind. I'm fine with anything. Li Che had a good temper and smiled warmly. But Ming-Chi, fellow Taoist Xikong, is much stronger than me when it comes to fighting. I think she should be more useful than me. I agree, Qin Xioma said concisely. All four of them agreed. I object. Only Xikong Zhan said firmly with a dark face. You can't go. You don't have the right to vote at all, okay? Xikong Xing glared at him, then turned to Ming-Chi. Ming-Chi, the minority obeys the majority. Ming-Chi. She nodded helplessly. After thinking about it, she still prepared to tell her friends about the situation in the 10 Extremes Mountain this time. At this moment, 3 knocks came from the door of the small courtyard. A disciple of the Mirror Moon Heaven said outside the door. Fellow Taoist Meng, the sect master invites everyone to go to the main hall. Okay. Ming-Chi hurriedly agreed. We'll go now. The disciple left, saying that he had to inform the others. Let's go. Qin Xioma and the others also stood up. You guys go first. Ming-Chi said decisively. I'm going to the heavens beyond. It'll be quick. Then, she turned and ran back to her room. Ming-Chi closed the door and anxiously took out the jade slip of the heavens beyond. The elder in the Heaven and Earth Book House had promised her that he could pass the Nirvana pills to Yin Qingyan for her. She just didn't know how to pass it to him. Was she going to pass through the relay station of the heavens beyond? Ming-Chi thought about it while holding the jade slip and entering the heavens beyond. She directly used the teleportation array to send herself to a place not far from the Heaven and Earth Book House. Then she walked there quickly. Ming-Chi refined a total of 100 Nirvana pills this time. She kept 10 for herself and put the rest in 3 porcelain bottles. She was going to ask the elder to pass them to Yin Qingyan. It was always so quiet outside the Heaven and Earth Book House. Ming-Chi had been here many times, but she didn't seem to have seen other cultivators come here. Today the door of the Heaven and Earth Book House was ajar. She pushed the door open and entered. It was quiet inside. Sure enough, there was no one inside. Senior. Ming-Chi stood on the first floor of the book house and looked up. Senior, are you there? The book house was quiet. No one answered her. Senior. Ming-Chi was anxious, but there was no other way. The elder wasn't always here. There were a few times when she came, but he wasn't there. Ming-Chi waited for a moment and called out again. Senior, are you there? The study room was quiet, and only her own voice echoed in the room. Ming-Chi. She exhaled in disappointment. What should she do now? The senior said that he would come here every evening. If she had known, she would have come here every day and refined as many pills as she could. Now she turned to look outside the door. She didn't know if she could wait until evening today. Sure enough, she couldn't do anything well. No matter what, she couldn't help Qin Yan's Henjun. It had always been like this. It had always been, you. Just as Ming-Chi was feeling very vexed, a clear voice suddenly came from behind her. Why are you looking for the owner of this book house? The person hesitated for a moment and called out, Ming-Chi? Ming-Chi suddenly turned around. Behind her, on the second floor of the book house, a man in a white robe stood tall with his hands on the railing, looking at her quietly. That person was Yin Qingyan. Ming-Chi blinked. She couldn't believe that she didn't find the elder, but actually saw Yin Qingyan. Ever since she stubbornly left in the Fallen Star Sea, she hadn't seen him again. Sikongjian had mentioned that Yun Qingyan had returned to the demon realm. The last time Mengqi came to the heavens beyond heaven, it wasn't that she didn't think that she might be able to see Yun Qingyan here, but the floating island of the heavens beyond heaven was still somewhere she couldn't reach. None of the teleportation arrays at the city gate could lead to the highest floating island. Mengqi stared at the white-robed young man in a daze, looking at the familiar yet somewhat unfamiliar expression on his face. For a long time she couldn't say anything. They hadn't been separated for long, but if it was really what she thought it was, it wasn't just a short 1 or 2 months between them. Yun Qingyan he Mengqi? Yun Qingyan stood up straight and interrupted Mengqi's thoughts. What's wrong? Qing. Mengqi suddenly came back to her senses. As soon as she opened her mouth, her voice choked. Qing. Qingyan. Yun Qingyan raised his eyebrows and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Mengqi actually called him that. She finally. Qingyan's Henjun. Mengqi looked up at him and finally called out in a choked voice. Chapter 144. Yun Qingyan. It seemed that he was overthinking. She didn't seem to care about what he did to Mengqi in the falling cloud manner. When she woke up later, she was very calm and natural. He didn't know where to start. Mengqi didn't remember. She wasn't the one who went berserk at that time, but him. She was sober. Anyway, she just didn't care. Yun Qingyan let out a long breath. In the blink of an eye, he was already standing on the first floor of the Heaven and Earth book house. Mengqi was still looking up at him. There were still tears on her elegant face. Her eyes were red, and her long eyelashes were wet with tears. She looked very pitiful. Oh, before Yun Qingyan could speak, Mengqi had already lowered her head and wiped the tears on her face. Qingyan's Henjun. When she spoke again, there was a faint nasal voice. It sounded soft, pitiful, and cute. Mengqi was quite embarrassed. She was really useless. She actually cried when she saw Yun Qingyan. She wasn't a crying person. When she was wronged and accused, she didn't feel that there was anything to cry about. But when she saw Yun Qingyan, she couldn't control her tears. Mengqi was too embarrassed to look up. A soft brocade handkerchief was handed to her. Her slender fingers held the brocade handkerchief. Thank you. Mengqi hurriedly grabbed the brocade handkerchief and wiped her eyes again, a little embarrassed. The brocade handkerchief carried a faint cold fragrance of the forest, which was a bit like the scent on Yun Qingyan's body. When she wiped her tears, it brushed past her nose. It was so clear that she couldn't ignore it. Mengqi held the brocade handkerchief in her hand and was stunned for a moment, until Yun Qingyan spoke again. What's wrong? Oh. Mengqi came back to her senses and hurriedly said, Qingyan's Henjun. While speaking, she took out a porcelain bottle from her storage pouch and said, This is the Nirvana pill. It was all thanks to the phoenix fruit given by Qingyan's Henjun that I was able to concoct it. I refined a total of 100 pills and I kept 10 for myself. Mengqi said shyly. Yun Qingyan looked at the porcelain bottle in Mengqi's hand. He then looked at her head that was getting lower and lower as well as her long and fair neck that was exposed. I don't need. He wanted to refuse, but before he could finish speaking, he saw Mengqi raise his head and glance at him. Mengqi's eyes were full of disappointment and sadness. That's a lot. Yun Qingyan quickly corrected herself. Just give me 10 pills. But these should belong to Qingyan's Henjun. Mengqi said quickly. She was already very embarrassed to keep 10 pills for herself. Yun Qingyan waved her hand. Then give me some other pills. Okay. Yun Qingyan looked at Mengqi in amusement. Her eyes suddenly became excited. Was she happy so easily? When he transformed into Little Qi, the little white tiger, he had been following Mengqi for a long time. He rarely saw her so many expressions. Most of the time, Mengqi was so calm that it was not like her age. When she was with the little fox from the Red Fox clan, she seemed to be different. Yun Qingyan snorted. The Red Fox clan was too idle after all. He could find something for them to do. It was not right for them to wander around the 3,000 worlds and play all day. Mengqi did not know that his thoughts had wandered so far. She took out a bunch of porcelain bottles from her storage pouch and asked, North Dark Pills, 9 Yang Pills. But Qingyan's Henjun, your cultivation level is too high. Maybe these pills are not suitable for you. She looked up at Yin Qingyan. Actually, the Nirvana pill was the most suitable. It was not limited by the cultivation level of the person who made the pill. All Xiuzha in the 3 realms could use it, and the effect was the same. A seriously injured person could keep their life. A person who had used up all of their Ling energy could instantly fill their spiritual sea with Ling energy. Even if the spiritual sea was heavily injured and about to shatter, taking this Nirvana pill would allow the Xiuzha to continue fighting for a certain amount of time. It was a pity that the phoenix fruit was too rare. Medical Xiu would occasionally get one. It was already very good that it was made into a Nirvana pill. How could they bear to use this life-prolonging medicine like this? They kept it for life-saving purposes. For someone like Meng Qi to refine 100 pills in one go, it would be shocking no matter which great sect it was in. Oh, Yin Qingyan said. According to your calculations, I should be at Truth Realm 9. Meng Qi inhaled sharply and looked up at Yin Qingyan in disbelief. So powerful. She always knew that Yin Qingyan was very powerful, but she didn't expect her to be so powerful. Her cultivation level should be second to none in the 3 realms, right? Yin Qingyan looked at Meng Qi's surprised eyes and smiled slightly. What's wrong? No. Meng Qi quickly shook her head and said, Qingyan's Henjun really can't use these pills. She couldn't hide the regret in her tone. What she could do for him was still so little. In fact, she had long known that the gap between the two of them was far greater than the gap in the Starfall Sea. Even if she tried her best to catch up with him, he wouldn't slack off at all. So all this time, it was Yin Qingyan who taught her and helped her, but she couldn't do anything for him. Meng Qi stood in place in a daze. For a moment, the Heaven and Earth book room became extremely quiet. Yin Qingyan reached out to hold her hand, and took the porcelain bottle from her palm. Then he held Meng Qi's hand and asked, There will be an auction in the Heaven-class auction house soon. Do you want to go and take a look? But Mirror Moon Heaven's 10 Extremes Mountain is about to be opened. I know. Yin Qingyan said, The sect masters of all the major sects in the 3 realms will come. Before the auction ends, 10 Extremes Mountain won't be opened. Don't worry. Okay. Meng Qi didn't ask why. She never doubted Yin Qingyan's words. Not in the past, and not now. Let's go. Yin Qingyan held her hand and walked out of the Heaven and Earth book room. His movements were so natural. Meng Qi was still in shock of meeting Yin Qingyan here after a long separation, so she didn't pay attention to such details. By the way, Yin Qingyan wasn't in a hurry. The Heaven and Earth book room was located in a corner of the northern city of Sky Beyond Heaven. Few people came here, so it was very quiet. He held Meng Qi's hand and walked side by side with her on the street. As if he was just chatting casually, he said casually, If you don't use up your spiritual points, you can use them to rent the medicinal fields in Sky Beyond Heaven. Meng Qi asked in surprise, Can we do that? Yes. Yin Qingyan said, There are some good medicinal fields here. The spiritual energy is pure and abundant, and it's very suitable for cultivating spiritual herbs and flowers. Other than those blessed lands, there are no better medicinal fields in the 3 realms. Okay. Meng Qi nodded obediently. She looked up at the sky. If it was the Heaven-class auction house, it should be in the Sky Beyond Heaven tower. And Meng Qi turned to look at Yin Qingyan. The white-robed man stood tall, and had always been very patient in front of her. If it weren't for the fact that things had happened one by one and the truth was right in front of her, Meng Qi wouldn't have believed that Yin Qingyan was the demon lord and also the master of Sky Beyond Heaven. SLK. Calm he wasn't. She was a little confused. Let's not talk about this life. In her previous life, Yin Qingyan accompanied her for a few years and looked very leisurely. Yin Qingyan followed her gaze and looked at the sky. Do you want to go there? He misunderstood and asked casually. Huh? Before Meng Qi understood the meaning of his words, Yin Qingyan reached out to her. Give me your nameplate. Meng Qi quickly handed her nameplate to Yin Qingyan. Then she saw Yin Qingyan send a wisp of spiritual awareness into her nameplate. You can go there whenever you want in the future. He returned the nameplate to Meng Qi, his right hand still holding Meng Qi's left hand. Sky beyond heaven, you can go wherever I can go. Meng Qi. She grabbed her nameplate and looked at it over and over again, feeling a little helpless. But she didn't ask or say anything. She followed Yun Qingyan almost blindly, and stepped into the teleportation array with him. Meng Qi's eyes lit up, and in the next moment, they appeared on the heaven-class floating island. Yun Qingyan was still holding her hand and walking forward slowly. Meng Qi finally realized that the two of them were in a weird position. True monarch Qingyan. She hurriedly struggled, wanting to retract her hand. They aren't here yet. Yun Qingyan comforted her. Don't be afraid. As he spoke, he held Meng Qi's hand even tighter. Meng Qi. Who wasn't here yet. That wasn't the point at all, okay? The point was, how could she and Qingyan's Henjun walk hand in hand like this? What was this? Meng Qi struggled again, and tried to withdraw her hand. Qingyan's Henjun, I can walk by myself. Moreover, she had been to the heaven-class auction house before. There was only one path on this floating island, so she wouldn't go wrong. I know. Yun Qingyan said leisurely. Although he said that, he still didn't intend to let go of Meng Qi's hand. Meng Qi. Yun Qingyan didn't stop walking and didn't care about Meng Qi's struggle. She wouldn't struggle too hard anyway. Meng Qi replied. She twisted her hand again, but Yun Qingyan still had no intention of letting go. In just a short while, the courtyard where the heaven-class auction house was located appeared in front of them. Yun Qingyan pushed the door open and entered with Meng Qi. It wasn't the first time Meng Qi had been to the auction house in heaven beyond heaven. As Yun Qingyan stepped in, she followed him in. She originally thought that she would be sent to a different room. Unexpectedly, when she stepped out, she saw a courtyard that couldn't be any straighter. In the courtyard there were rockery, flowing water, and all kinds of flowers and trees were ingenious. Although it wasn't big, it was still very beautiful. After passing through the courtyard, there was a room that was much more spacious than the place Meng Qi had been to last time. It also faced the auction house in the valley, and there were coffee tables and cushions for people to sit on. In addition, there was a very comfortable reclining chair at a glance. Meng Qi realized that Yun Qingyan really liked reclining chairs. There were reclining chairs in the Falling Cloud Manor and here. In his previous life, he and Meng Qi had lived in seclusion in a valley in the 3,000 worlds for a long time. There was also a very comfortable reclining chair there. The reclining chair was always covered with soft cushions. As long as he could lie down, it seemed that he wouldn't sit upright. Meng Qi. Yun Qingyan simply pulled Meng Qi to sit down with him. He had always been gentle and elegant, and in front of Meng Qi, he was an absolute gentleman. Today, however, he was acting out of character. This kind of behavior didn't seem like something he would do. Meng Qi responded in a low voice. Her hand was still in Yun Qingyan's hand. She could see it if she lowered her head. His hand was much bigger than hers. His slender fingers wrapped around her hand. It was very warm, but she was also not used to it. Meng Qi. Yun Qingyan called her this for the third time. Meng Qi couldn't help but turn to look at him. She felt that he was a little strange today. Let me ask you. He tapped the chair lightly with his other hand. It was obvious that he had something difficult to decide. Yun Qingyan thought for a while and asked, if I had been possessed by the devil that time, would you have done the same thing to save them? Meng Qi was puzzled. I can't save them, right? She felt that she didn't help much. Later, it was all thanks to Yun Qingyan's own clear-headed mind, and restrained the spiritual energy that was about to fall apart. Her role was only to help him regain some clarity of mind. If it was someone else who wasn't as strong as Yun Qingyan, Meng Qi wouldn't have been able to save them when their spiritual energy was about to fall apart into the 5 spirit vital energy. Yun Qingyan. He looked at Meng Qi's clear eyes and saw the serious look in them. He was a little speechless. He should call the old man in the Heaven and Earth Bookhouse Grandpa. He was an elder in his clan. Therefore, although he was perfected Lord White Tiger, he was still respectful and polite to him. He had never been rude. After the two of them talked that day, Yun Qingyan understood where the awkwardness in his heart came from. He had seen how Meng Qi treated Qin Xiaoma when he was suffering from qi deviation. He had also seen how Meng Qi refused to leave Ji Wujiong, who was unconscious at that time, in the apricot forest enchantment and escaped alone. She would even save the fiendish cultivator she picked up in the Starfall Sea. Yun Qingyan tapped his fingers on the chair a few more times. To put it simply, he felt that compared to these people, he didn't seem to be much different in Meng Qi's eyes. They were all patients who needed her treatment. What if you can save them? Yun Qingyan asked slowly. He looked into Meng Qi's eyes. He didn't know what answer he wanted. Meng Qi glanced at Yun Qingyan carefully. She was really strange today, as if she had been possessed by something. Could it be? Her expression turned cold, and she subconsciously wanted to check Yun Qingyan's pulse. As soon as she raised her hand, Meng Qi reacted. With Yun Qingyan's cultivation level, who could possess her? Moreover, this was the Outland. Those who could enter here were all divine senses. It couldn't be disguised. Meng Qi quietly withdrew her hand. She thought for a moment and asked softly, Qingyan's Henjun, is the matter in the demon realm not going well? She had never doubted Yun Qingyan's ability, but she knew that the fight for the Demon Lord token must have been full of danger from the beginning. No. Yun Qingyan said. You haven't answered me yet. Then, Meng Qi thought seriously and looked at Yun Qingyan carefully. Can I save them? Yun Qingyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm the one who asked you this question. You just need to ask your own heart. Meng Qi hesitated. Then if I can save them, I'd better save them? Yun Qingyan was both amused and angry. He knew that Meng Qi was compromising in front of him. If it were someone else, she wouldn't hesitate like this. She had her own path, and she was so determined and serious all the way. It was very rare for her to compromise for him. Forget it. Yun Qingyan waved her hand. Meng Qi secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but she heard her say again, what if the other party wants to do the same to you? Ha! She didn't wait for Yun Qingyan's next words. In a moment of dizziness, the other party had already grabbed her waist and pressed her down on the soft-cushioned recliner. Yun Qingyan leaned over. Just like this, at a distance where Meng Qi could hear her breathing, he asked her in a hoarse voice, will you continue? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.